Okay, we'll call a meeting to order. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to City Council Chambers for our council meeting. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Our first item this evening is a presentation. I'd like to invite Mr. Jordan Birch from Now That's Ugly Society to talk about Ugly Christmas Sweater Day, which is December 20th, 2013. Okay.
And in all my years on council, I don't know that the word ugly ever appeared in our minutes. Indeed.
Everybody hear me?
Good to have you here.
Thank you very
Merry
much.
Christmas.
Certainly a pleasure. So my name is Jordan Birch, Chief Experience Officer of Now That's Ugly Society. Now That's Ugly Society is a grassroots not-for-profit organization that actually initiated 12 years back in a Coquitlam living room on Medora Avenue up near Blue Mountain. So I'm a Coquitlam boy. I was born and raised in this city. I currently reside in Port Moody. Dave here is one of our board of directors, and we're really honored to be able to present Ugly Sweater Day and all the other initiatives that we have to you. So, Mr. Mayor, council, managers, public, thank you very much for your time and your listening. I do have to apologize. I use a Mac computer at home, and I'm not that tech savvy, so one of the things, I actually went out of my comfort zone and used some really cool fonts, and obviously it's not recognizable on this edition of computer, so I usually focus more on what I'm wearing, as you can tell, and not so much on a presentation. So I just wanted to let you know that. I do apologize for that if there's any technical issues with that.
Yes, your focus on fashion is self-evident.
Yeah, it's obvious, isn't it? Is this thing on? So our not-for-profit organization, we have 3 initiatives. Obviously, Ugly Sweater Day, I'm here to talk to you about that. But we have a party and we have a run. So last week we did our Ugly Sweater Run, the first of its kind in Canada. We also did a run in Toronto a couple weeks ago. It was a success. We partnered with Light the Hall, and I think there was some great synchronicity there. Our party is really where this all started. So we did start a house party back in 2001 in our Coquitlam living room. Grew out of the confined space of a house, grew to a bar, a university pub, and eventually the Commodore Ballroom. On the top left there, that's myself and my co-founder Chris doing the eggnog chugging contest. So our party really has been recognized internationally for being a catalyst for the ugly sweater phenomenon. And what we've done with our party year after year is donate the proceeds to a particular charity. Chris and I have full-time careers. We did this off the side of our desk. Eventually, after moving to the Commodore, doing it year and generating more and more proceeds, we decided to go to the next level and align ourselves with a charity. And in this case, it's the Children's Wish Foundation of Canada. What we've done is we've really lent into our biggest initiative, and we're going big with this one. This is our button campaign. Similar concept to Jeans Day, where you buy a button for $5. Dave's got our button kits here, 40 buttons to a kit, and those are at storefronts across Canada. We're actually shipping them down into the States and even to Australia right now as well. All the proceeds from button sales are supporting Children's Wish Foundation of Canada, which, if you haven't heard of them, they grant the most heartfelt wishes for kids living with life-threatening illnesses. They grant them an experience, a travel experience, a custom adventure, so that they can provide, the adventure can provide a sense of normalcy for their life amidst medical appointments and the trauma that they go through with their illness. So to date, we've had success and partnerships with the City of Vancouver, Gregor Robertson, Mike Clay in Port Moody, Greg Moore in Port Coquitlam, to having our official day, the 3rd Friday of December, in this case December 20th, proclaimed as Ugly Sweater Day. A little bit of history about why we chose Children's Wish and the reason why we're doing this. We finally aligned ourselves with a national charity is because of Ashlyn. She's a close family friend, a Coquitlam resident. Her dad's a medical doctor in the Coquitlam area, and she recently passed away from cancer. Last year, we granted a wish for her and her family, sent them to Disneyland just before she passed, and her husband, Corey, said at her memorial service how special of an experience that was. And that's why we chose Children's Wish, because they gave us an opportunity to replicate that experience on a grander scale, and was a great fit for us personally. Oh, this photo's kind of missing. We'll skip that. Ugly Sweater Day. So what do you have to do? Why is it important? What does it mean? Well, how it works. You don't just have to get an ugly sweater, but you have to get an ugly sweater, and you got to wear a button, and you got to know why you're wearing it. Oh, goodness, what's happening here? If I may direct your attention to the front of the room. He's missing something, though, folks.
Yeah, I'm sorry, mine isn't ugly, but
Does he have a button?
All depends who you ask.
Wow. Do we have reindeer on that, Mr. Mayor? Are those elephants or reindeer?
They're elephants.
Oh, my. Okay, so, wow, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
This is impromptu. This was not planned.
You were saying.
Yeah, this is what this is about. Basically, I mean, ugly Christmas sweaters have been an international phenomenon. We'd be happy to be a part of that and be a catalyst for it. But we really want to bring it back to why we're doing this. And really, our core values are to be ugly, obviously, do good, connect with people that matter, reconnect with people that you've lost touch with, be kind and jovial all day, and ultimately give back. And that's why we're doing a button campaign, because that's the symbolism of it, what we did for Ashland in the first place, and what we want to do for these kids. How it works, basically, as I mentioned, get a sweater, wear a button. There is options for people, if the cause, the campaign speaks to you a little bit more, you can register a team online, similar to what Movember does. We've got the software in place where you can register your office or your team, and you can collect pledges. I see that as an initiative that will probably enhance next year, but for the most part, it's wear a sweater, buy a button. These are the button kits, so Dave here, he's sort of just showing everyone around. We've got some very grateful for you participating and leading by example, which is part of the reason why I'm here, is to ask the City of Coquitlam to be a spirit champion. But clearly, with your enthusiasm right in this moment, I think we have achieved that, and I could probably go home. So our button kits, 40 buttons to a kit, like I said, we're delivering them in person. People are ordering them on our website, uglysweaterday.com. We're also couriering them across Canada down into the States. Basically, the people who buy them are taking ownership. They're in businesses around Coquitlam, Port Moody, Vancouver, etc. We partner with the Vancouver Christmas Market, Mount Seymour Resorts, Thrifty's Pharmacy, Thrifty's Foods. In Coquitlam, we've got Sticky's Candies, Bosley's, Genesis Kitchens. Who else, Dave?
And Izitco Mortgage Co. Megan Insurance will know tomorrow that they're on board. So it is a grassroots that we are reaching out to the mom and pops, to the members of our community that give back.
Yeah.
Leo Bruno, of course.
Yeah, Remax Realty.
Of course.
Mr.
In
Mike.
fact, he's supplying most of the sweaters.
So, I mean, we've been... Obviously, it's a good time, and we want to continue to have a good time. And we're, like Dave said, we're building this from the inside out. So grassroots, we're focusing on small to medium-sized families, businesses, organizations, councils, community members, city staff. We really want to have this recognized as a Tri-City initiative. So we do understand that. I've had a couple conversations with Mr. Mayor here about the situation with proclaiming official days, but we're so honored that if you will designate this as a celebratory day within the city on December 20th, and join the other two Tri-Cities. Now, we also have the pleasure of the Tri-City Chamber of Commerce Luncheon. We've partnered with them this Thursday to uglify their Christmas luncheon, enhance the experience of the event, and everyone as part of their registration receives a button as well. Oh, who's that in the bottom right corner?
Yeah. He doesn't even need a sweater.
He needs
One
a
of our
red nose.
campaign, one of our early campaign spirit champions.
That is statement about my shirt.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
So like I said, the bottom left corner, top right corner there, we've got local businesses on board. So what we're trying to do is actually give them an avenue to get back and get involved in the community in a kind of a weird tongue-in-cheek kind of way, out of the norm. So in closing, we have a really we have a kick-ass website, uglysweaterday.com. Tons of videos. We've been working really hard with our videos and trying to get our message clear and across. And I'd love to open up the floor to any of you to speak on how we can work with you to get you more involved. I know we've already got a button kit in HR. One of your staff has already stepped up and jumped the gun and asked for a button kit. So how can we work with you on this, and how can we continue to bring our events to the city? Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I must admonish you right at the outset, we don't use kick-ass during council meetings. So kick-ass is off limits. Don't use kick-ass.
Enthusiastic.
They just used it 3 times.
Noted.
Councillor O'Neill.
You can see that I'm already supporting you, and it's a wonderful idea, and congratulations on starting a global phenomenon. It has really
On my door.
been amazing. 2 things. One, the selection of Children's Wish Foundation of Canada. Yeah, I second that as a great selection. One of my nephews is actually a godson, just about a month ago, was able to take advantage of Children's Wish Foundation. And thankfully, by the way, he's sort of in remission from cancer right now. And he and his dad and a couple of his brothers were able to go to Green Bay to see the Green Bay Packers play football. So it was an experience of a lifetime. So tremendous charity. And the second is a bit of advice on getting more publicity. Turn around and show yourself to the camera there and wave to the Cablevision camera up there. Shaw Cable.
Come on, with the front
Come on,
part.
get up there.
They're
There
not
you
as
go.
ugly from the back.
Good stuff. Yeah, it was a very nice look. Good. So, yes.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know if I missed this while Jordan was talking, but we do have, this has all come together in a short period of time. Next year with time, putting a strategic plan in place, we are reaching out to the schools. We see a great opportunity to bring this into their social responsibility, their anti-bullying campaign, working with members of the community, already with the fire department, with the police and stuff, and the Tri-Cities, and really bringing this into the kids and having them champion and get behind it. So.
Outstanding. Councillor Sikora.
Thank you very much. So you're selling these buttons for $5 each, and the proceeds, do they go to a hospital? Does it go to some society? Where do the proceeds go?
Yeah, so our organization, we're an exclusive fundraising organization for the Children's Wish Foundation of Canada. They're a registered charity. We're a not-for-profit organization. So this year, we're donating the proceeds to the Children's Wish. Next year, we'll be applying for our own charity status.
I know Children's Wishes, so there's a society or whatever it is?
Yeah, we're a not-for-profit organization called Now That's Ugly Society, and we fundraise and support the Children's Wish Foundation of Canada.
And do you support them through a hospital? Do you support them through, I've never heard of this before.
Yeah.
Each child gets granted a wish, and each wish has a budget of $10,000. So these children apply for it, and these wishes get provided. As Councillor O'Neill spoke to, they had a trip to Green Bay. We met a young gentleman that got access to a new wheelchair. Disneyland's often a destination for him. We have a goal to grant 3 wishes in this year, so that equates to $30,000 that we will give in, and those wishes will go back. There's a young man living right now in Coquitlam. His name's Conlon. I can share his information. He has fibromyalgia. He's always wanted to learn to surf. His family is going to go to Hawaii, and he's going to receive surf lessons. So that is a goal. That is his wish. So we're providing the fundraising to get him there.
Thank you very much. Yeah, great information. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I really appreciate your coming, and you've certainly livened up what's sometimes not the most exciting part of the week for some of us. But I did want to point out that Movember is over.
That's what everyone on our team's been telling them.
Councillor Nicholson, if you look at the button that Your Honour Mayor Stewart there is wearing, they say I have a striking resemblance to Mr. Cheesyhead on the button. So that'll be with me until after.
No, he's quite attractive, actually.
That'll be with me until after the party. Thank you.
Well, I will, by way of explanation to Councillor Sikora and others who might not have heard of the program, have had a fair amount of involvement. I've been on one of their fundraising programs, which is a competition kind of survivor-like competition, and I was named Mr. Survivor of 1 year with my daughter, Vanessa. This program raises money for Children's Wish, but we also got a chance to go on Air Transat. Air Transat did a flight every year to the North Pole for children who had life-threatening illnesses. So it's not just the grand wish, but for these children, for many of these children, this was the best thing that ever happened to them. They got taken into the International Departures Lounge at YVR. The board actually says all of the flights going to Newark, New Jersey, and London, England, and Air Transat Flight 009 to the North Pole, and the announcement comes on, last call for all passengers to the North Pole. You should be at gate 37 now. The children are so excited. They climb on this plane. The plane takes off, and 2 hours later, Santa lands on the roof of the plane and comes in to the plane, and these children are beside themselves, and a couple hours later we're landing at YVR, and for the rest of their lives they know they went to the North Pole. It's an amazing, and that's actually that was done entirely by Air Transat as one of their corporate contributions. There's some kids who are going through life's challenges in ways that we can't even imagine, and Children's Wish makes it easier on them, gives them something to look forward to, gives them some special moment in their lives where they where they're no longer just a sick child, where their tubes and pins and IVs are set aside for the day and they get to be a kid again. And so I thoroughly support the program. I will absolutely endorse you and wish you great success from your roots on Medore. And then I'm going to lose this sweater.
Are you sweating?
Yes.
Is it hot and itchy? Okay.
Thank you very much.
All good.
Yeah, on behalf of Now That's Ugly Society, apologies for my language, but we do get excited. We're super passionate about what we do. We do appreciate, I'll leave my business card at the front here, and you can contact us if you'd like to get a button kit in any of your kids' schools, families, or fellow colleagues who have businesses. And we really appreciate your time and for listening. Thank you.
And thank you for...
I got that covered.
Yeah, he's got that covered for both of them. Thank you for your boundless enthusiasm. Outstanding. Good to have you.
The next item, item 2, concerns the minutes of the public hearing held on Monday, November 25th. Recommendation to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, second by Councillor Asmundson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 3 is the minutes of the regular council meeting held on Monday, November 25th. Recommendation to approve.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councillor Asmundson, second by Councillor O'Neill. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 4 is the minutes of the Sports Council meeting held on Tuesday, October 15th. Recommendation to receive.
Moved by Councillor Hodge, second by Councillor Nicholson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 5 is the verbal report of the mayor concerning the 2014 to 2018 financial plan.
Thank you very much. Good evening, all. Likely the greatest responsibility of an elected body is the stewardship of the public purse. This City Council takes that duty very seriously, and members of this council raise those issues every single meeting. Ultimately, the decisions we make today must support our collective desire for safe neighborhoods with affordable housing choices, a business environment that supports local jobs, a variety of community recreation and leisure opportunities, a multimodal transportation network, and reliable delivery of those services that are considered the basics: water, wastewater, garbage and recycling, paving, environmental protection, and perhaps most top of mind, public safety. We have achieved a great deal in recent years, and it's in that context of celebrating past achievements that I want to acknowledge former City Councillors Linda Reamer and Selena Robinson. As hard-working members of Council, both played an important role in setting the priorities that guided our actions in 2013 toward this day. Both were elected in the 2008 general election, and while they no longer sit at this table, both continued to represent the interests of our community as members of the Legislative Assembly, having been elected back in May. Coincidentally, both now have additional titles and duties related to their experience here in local government. Linda as Parliamentary Secretary on local government and Selena as Opposition Critic to local government, so they're still working on the same issue. As a result of this, Coquitlam should look forward to a pretty strong influence on local government issues in the provincial realm. Because of the vacancies left by Selena and Linda, we've had the pleasure of welcoming 2 new council members to the council table, Councillors Chris Wilson and Benita Zerillo. Fresh off the campaign trail in October, both have now rested and they're quickly got to work. They've been an integral part of this year's financial plan process, and they've contributed new ideas and enthusiasm to our deliberations, even before they were sworn in 2 weeks ago. I also want to acknowledge the hard work and dedication of my 6 other colleagues on council. Each brings a perspective and a background in a wide range of issues and a strong variety of experience. I've mentioned the 2 new councillors who were sworn in 2 weeks ago. We have 2 councillors who were sworn in 2 years ago, 2 that were sworn in 2 or 3 terms ago, and 2 that were sworn in, well, more than 2 decades ago. In the 2-year category, we have Councillor Hodge, who has a long history in the local media, and as a result, he has seen and documented much of the recent history of our community and our neighboring cities, and has a passion for the more ancient history as well. Councillor O'Neill, a former journalist, brings a wealth of background on a wide range of issues affecting cities and an amazing ability to research topics before council. A Google Meister, perhaps. First sworn in 2007, and being sworn out ever since, Councillor Nicholson, a chartered accountant and a very deliberate thinker. He brings much history with many local organizations like Fraser Health Authority and Douglas College. And Councillor Asmundson, a transit driver and long-standing Burke Mountain resident, has been on council 8 years. He drives our streets more than any of us, and sometimes drives us crazy. But as a he tries. He says it's deliberate. But as a result of that driving, he gets a close-up view of large portions of our city on a daily basis. Our 2 wise and respected colleagues who've served our residents the longest, Councillor Reid, a realtor and long-standing public servant in Coquitlam. I look to Councillor Reid for much of the history, much of the background on a wide range of issues facing the city, and a great deal of the passion and compassion that this council has. And finally, Councillor Sikora. Lou served this city as mayor, as councillor first, as mayor for 15 years, as a member of parliament, as a citizenship judge, and now we get the benefit of his history as we look to running a leading 21st century city, one of the 6 largest cities in the province. Lou often serves as our opposition critic. He's our official opposition. He'll probably vote against tonight's budget, but as he always does. But he always brings to council, he makes sure that council understands some of the history that affects the decisions we make today. Coquitlam remains the largest municipality in the province whose council members come to office as independents. We certainly bring different backgrounds, opinions, and political beliefs into the arena, but ultimately I'm proud of the way we're able to work collectively for the betterment of our community. Both city staff and council are sensitive to the financial challenges facing our taxpayers. We are mindful that the annual property tax notice from the city is not the only bill in your mailbox. At the same time, we hear many requests from throughout the community for additional facilities and services. Our budget is also affected by regional pressures and downloaded responsibilities from other levels of government that are often higher than inflation, such as more stringent environmental regulations, escalating solid waste fees, and higher standards for water and sewage treatment facilities. Of course, no one's suggesting that we shouldn't do these things, follow through on these changes, but the costs associated with them, often imposed by other orders of government, become our budgetary reality. So to the budget, I'd like to once again commend my colleagues for working together to create a budget that keeps 2014's property tax low, with an average property tax increase of 2.42%. This is the lowest increase since 2005, and a 5th year in a row of declining increases. The largest single change to the costs affecting our residents is a 20% cost savings realized through the adoption of a new solid waste contract. The new automated waste collection service, which will begin service in July, along with the transfer of the recycling services to another agency, has resulted in a $70 annual savings per household to the garbage utility levy. As a result of this and other savings, the total cost to most residents, property taxes plus utilities, will increase by about $15 this year. Let me repeat that. The total cost to most residents, garbage, all the utilities, and all the taxes will increase by $15 this coming year. How do we get here? Council has been very diligent, to be sure, and staff have worked very hard to get us to this point. For example, Council recently supported the development of a stop doing list, one of the favorites of Councillor O'Neill now, an initiative to examine our operations to see what kinds of things we should consider no longer doing or consider doing differently. Of course, in every Council decision, we consider all the feedback we get from residents, whether received informally by conversation or email, or through the more formal channels, such as town hall meetings, public budget sessions, and the annual statistically valid Ipsos Reid Citizen Satisfaction Survey. It's important that we listen and we act on what we hear. This budget does just that. The 2014-2018 financial plan is being considered tonight is very comprehensive, and I feel both staff and City Council have done their best to address the many priorities identified by both our residents and the business community. For the purposes of tonight's remarks, we're going to focus on 5 key priority areas. Number 1 is transportation and capital improvements. Public safety is number 2. Number 3, quality of life with a focus on parks, recreation, and culture services. Number 4 is the solid waste. And number 5 is business and economic development. So on transportation capital. Once again this year, transportation was a top priority for residents, and this is reflected in the financial plan. $91 million will be spent. $91 million will be spent on transportation initiatives over the next 5 years, in addition to billions in senior government investments in much-needed transportation infrastructure, both highways and SkyTrain. At the end of the day, we want to get you home to your families sooner via whatever mode of transport you choose. We want you to be able to move around your community safely, and that certainly includes pedestrian pathways, walkways. We want to continue to support a regional transportation network that allows commuters to move through our community efficiently and effectively in a way that has the least impact on our community. That means keeping traffic on the highways and out of our neighborhoods. One focus area that has been the city's sidewalk and walkability program, and this is continued in 2014. We're working hard to make our roadways and pedestrian networks safe. That includes a long-term traffic safety program around schools, a program that we've continued in this budget. A quick note, most of the funding for these transportation investments comes from development cost charges, reserves, and grants, but development cost charges is certainly a significant portion of that. That is fees taken from the development industry as they develop our community. And on the question of DCCs, the City of Coquitlam has accepted our portion of the region's growth, which means we'll see significant development over the next 30 years. We need to ensure that our infrastructure keeps up, our transportation networks, as well as our parks, our trails, and our amenities. And much of that will be funded by the development industry. On public safety, we know that safe neighborhoods are essential to the well-being of our community. We also know this is a high priority for our citizens. This is reflected in our survey results and is certainly reflected in the feedback we receive directly from residents and business operators. Consequently, public safety represents our highest spending priority, with a total of $55 million, or almost half of new spending. That includes 4 new firefighters and 2 new RCMP officers. 2014 will also see the completion of the new fire hall on Burke Mountain to serve that area and to reduce the pressures on our existing fire halls. For parks, recreation, culture, and our quality of life, Coquitlam is truly a vibrant place to live. Referencing the latest Ipsos Reid Citizen Satisfaction Survey, more than 98% of respondents said Coquitlam offered a good to very good quality of life. And our parks and recreation facilities play a big role in that, which is why we've allocated $69 million to this area over the next 5-year period. Key projects will include a new community centre in southwest Coquitlam and a covered dry floor facility in the Poirier Street area. There's also considerable investment in parkland acquisition and park development. In the past 3 years, we've added over 40 acres or 16.5 hectares of new parks and protected green space. And this financial plan allocates $25 million to further expand outdoor spaces for our citizens. One of our community's greatest strengths is our cultural diversity. Approximately 40% of our population is from other areas of the globe. The world has truly come to Coquitlam. And never is that more evident than our annual Canada Day celebration at Lafarge Lake. Every year on July 1st, we look forward to celebrating the ever-changing face of our city. Mais en même temps, On doit rappeler notre communauté francophone qui fait toujours partie de notre histoire et de notre patrimoine. C'est une communauté assez importante de notre histoire. We really need to continue to remember the roots of Coquitlam, the roots of the district of Coquitlam 120-something years ago, right in Millardville, our French-Canadian community. A couple of months ago, we purchased the Booth farmhouse in order to protect this valuable heritage asset that really is a significant element for our Francophone community of Millardville. Our 2014 work plan includes the Millardville Neighborhood Plan, which will further strengthen both the preservation and the progress of this important historical neighborhood. Another important community heritage asset that's not owned by the city, but is no less important to our citizens, is the Riverview lands. 2014 will be a crucial time as we work with the provincial government to define the future of this historic site. And on this point, Council is unanimous. We need to help define the future of this important heritage site for citizens of Coquitlam, but also for the people of this province, and in recognition of the many, many patients, the many, many staff that worked on this historic site for more than a century. Our city has always embraced wellness and mental health, and as a community, we need to continue to be strong advocates to ensure that Riverview continues to serve the public good. And that includes the public good in mental illness treatment, mental illness prevention, the treatment of addictions as well. And of course, none of that will be possible unless we discuss the preservation of the world-class arboretum located on the lands, as well as public uses such as mental health and wellness amenities on this site. The solid waste file, our solid waste file is one of the final key priorities. This area will see big changes in 2014 as we move to an automated collection service and the transfer of recycling services from the city to Multi-Material BC. Staff are still working out the finer details of the new program, and we'll be able to share them in the new year. But until those details are finalized, what we can share at this time is that as a result of the new contract and the migration toward automated collection services, residents receiving solid waste collection services from the city will see a 20% savings beginning this year, which equates to $70 on the utility notice in March, as well as a much more modern service. On the business and economic development side, the final of the 5 points, our budget presentation traditionally focused primarily on our residential taxpayers. But I feel, and Council feels, that it's important to also acknowledge our business community as a key stakeholder in our financial planning process. All of Council recognizes there's traditionally been a disproportionate distribution between residential and commercial property taxes in Coquitlam as well as in most other cities in the province. Our local businesses pay close to 40% of the cost of property tax-funded services, even though they consume only a fraction of those services. In order to redress this, for the past 18 years, the city has been shifting the taxes between residential and commercial property classes to more fairly reflect the services consumed by the classes, something we've continued this year. The long-term goal is to make our community more attractive to business, which produces jobs and economic investment in our city and ultimately builds a stronger business tax base, which benefits both the business community and our residents. And it will also help make our businesses more viable. Admittedly, taxes are never a popular subject. However, there's no question that the budget being proposed tonight is a good news story. I strongly believe that that Coquitlam has never been in a better position as a city. Our residents have indicated to us that they want livable, connected, inclusive neighborhoods with amenities and park spaces. We are bringing forward a financial plan that delivers just that. But I want to pause for a moment because it isn't just this plan. It was last year's plan, it was the year before, but it was also plans from the previous councils, financial plans that put us in the position we're in now. that we're able to capitalize on decisions made when Lou was mayor, decisions made in previous councils and previous decades through the history of our city. And the position we're in now as a city is largely a reflection of those decisions, those sound decisions made by our forebears, the folks that founded this community in 1891, and every council that has served this community ever since. All property taxpayers are looking to City Council to be as efficient as possible, and we have taken that mandate to heart. The average property tax increase this year is the lowest it's been in 8 years. And when combined with savings on the utility bill, we actually managed to confirm this, we now have the lowest tax utility cost increase for homeowners in decades. Our budgeting process is more than simply assigning dollars to fund projects and programs. Our financial priorities define not only our current quality of life, but perhaps more importantly, the long-term vision for our community. We're a community with the assets, the vigor, and the vision to tackle the challenges and opportunities to continue to prosper well into the future, and I want to thank all of those residents who contributed their input into this financial plan, all of the businesses, all of the staff that put so much effort into this. And I want to acknowledge council, including 2 council members who came in at this. They had to be running when we started because they had just been elected, and they put in long, long hours getting up to speed so that we could deliver this budget today. And I want to thank all of council for their efforts in this regard. Thank you.
The next item, item 6, is the 2014 5-year financial plan and capital program bylaws. The recommendation is that Council give first, second, and third readings to City of Coquitlam 2014 5-year financial plan bylaw number 4451. The Council give first, second, and third readings to the following bylaws which support the 2014 capital program. This is the City of Coquitlam Drainage Development Cost Charge Reserve Fund Expenditure Bylaw 4443, the City of Coquitlam Sewer Development Cost Charge Reserve Fund Expenditure Bylaw 4444, City of Coquitlam Water Development Cost Charge Reserve Fund Expenditure Bylaw 4445, City of Coquitlam Transportation Development Cost Charge Reserve Fund Expenditure Bylaw 4446, City of Coquitlam Parkland Acquisition Development Cost Charge Reserve Fund Expenditure Bylaw 4447, and City of Coquitlam Parkland Improvement Development Cost Charge Reserve Fund Expenditure Bylaw 4448. And 3, the Council approve the following allocations from the statutory reserve funds which support the 2014 capital program. These are City of Coquitlam Land Sale Reserve in the amount of $9,825,000 and the City of Coquitlam Vehicle Replacement Reserve in the amount of $1,901,000.
Moved by Councillor Asman, second by Councillor Hodge. All in favor? Oops.
This where we debate the budget, or am I early?
No, this is the spot. Yep. Okay. I've got Councillor O'Neill.
I don't know quite how to start this. I've got some words written down here on the top of my page. They say, I will oppose this budget. And I thought, no, I better retense that. I would oppose this budget. Is a better way of putting that. Got your attention, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
I would oppose this budget on several grounds. If it didn't continue lowering the average tax rate increase, if it didn't continue lowering specifically the residential tax rate increase, if it didn't continue the tax shift that makes the commercial tax rate increase even lower, and if it didn't provide major new public safety initiatives, if it didn't respond to taxpayers' requests for transportation improvements, and if it didn't carry with it a major commitment to continually examine city services to see what should be added and significantly what should be dropped. And so with that criteria, what does Budget 2014 deliver? Well, as the Mayor said, we have an average tax rate increase of just 2.42%. That's a full half point, almost a full half point lower than last year's average increase, which in turn was lower than the year before, and which in turn was lower than the year before that. And indeed, since the high water mark of 7.0 0.11% increase in 2009. The average tax rate increase has been on a straight line downward, and that's good. That's good news. Hand in hand with that, point 2 is my residential rate, and next point was the commercial rate increases are lower as well, of course, with the average one being lower. And because of our continuing commitment to the tax shift, the commercial rate increase will be only 1.8% this year. That's more good news. And those public safety initiatives, which are always very high on the minds of our citizens, 4 new firefighters, 2 new RCMP officers, that's a pretty major commitment. So I think we met that standard. Transportation improvements, why is that on my list? Because every Ipsos Reid survey that I've seen since I've been on council puts those transportation concerns at the top of the list of citizens' concerns, ahead of everything. And so does this budget help there? Yes, it does. It commits significant funds to road rehabilitation and road enhancement throughout Coquitlam. And that thing about future decisions being made wisely. I was, as the mayor pointed out, very pleased to hear that during our budget deliberations that our management team was launching a new initiative to identify services and programs that are no longer needed with the aim of eliminating them, thus allowing property taxpayers to keep a few more dollars in their pocketbook or maybe use those saved dollars to launch a badly needed new service. This initiative is called the Stop Doing List, and I have a little post-it note that I put here the very first day that this was announced, and it's staying right here. And I am going to mention the Stop Doing List at every opportunity, and I've just mentioned it 3 or 4 times now. So I don't stop doing that. So the one thing that I hope that the Stop Doing List doesn't identify as an initiative that should be ended is the Stop Doing List initiative itself. So I had 6 criteria for the budget that I wanted met generally, and all 6 were met. This does not mean the budget is perfect. The record or lengthy deliberation shows that I opposed some of the measures that have gotten into this, some of the spending measures that the majority approved. But while the budget is not perfect, it's certainly good enough. And it's even better in terms of the taxes when you factor in the decrease in utilities fees, which the mayor mentioned. My late mother always said, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, meaning that insisting on perfection often results in no improvement at all. And there's another maxim out there that says that the first 80% of what you're trying to achieve just takes 20% of your initiative, of your effort. It's the last 20% that sometimes takes 80%. And the closer you get to trying to reach perfection, the harder you have to work and the less likelihood you will have to try to reach that perfect ending. So in the view of this budget, I think it is a good one. It is not perfect, but I think we will be wise to take my mother's advice and to go forward with what is a very good budget. Achieving perfection, of course, perfection is impossible. But the longer we try to work at achieving perfection, the harder and more inefficient that work actually becomes. Our work would become stalled and we'd end up achieving nothing at all. And something is certainly better than nothing. And this something, Budget 2014, which answers the needs of so many of our citizens, from the hopeful new homeowners on Burke Mountain to the actively involved seniors at the Dogwood Pavilion and the Gun Pine Pavilion, from the commuter looking for better roads to the merchant looking for an ever lighter tax load, this something is certainly something worth supporting, and I will be voting in favor of it.
Thank you. Councillor Hodge.
Yes. This budget increase of 2.42 is the smallest increase in the past 8 years, as we've already discussed. In fact, there's only been one increase in the past 20 years that's been smaller than this one. And the fact that we've been able to provide so many new and needed improvements, such as, the 4 firefighters, 2 more police officers, we've made improvements in this budget to transportation, we've increased money for parks, and we've done this while keeping the increase at historical low levels. This is all good news. But part of the reason that we've been able to provide much of these needed services while keeping the increase to an average of just $15 per household is because we've seen an increase in revenue from new assessments and a savings from garbage collection. And we may not have the benefit of these in the future. In fact, staff in this report has projected that we could be creeping back to 3% increases in the future, and this is a real concern. And I believe that the only way to prevent these type of increases in the future is to begin planning today and looking for future ways to reduce spending. Next year's budget starts, tomorrow. We have to start planning ahead. And I think because we're not always going to be able to rely on growth to help us out. And in the past, we've done cyclical reviews on different departments, and I think, well, these have been valuable, and they've helped us improve operations, and we've improved efficiency, and we've learned a lot from these reviews, but they weren't, as I discovered, they weren't primarily financial reviews. And I think, I'm encouraged by the plan to create a stop doing list, but I want that to also be focused on a ways to stop spending list. And I think that we, I don't think that we need to go back to zero each year, but I do believe that once in a while it's prudent to push the restart button and to go back to square one and look at budgets passed and see, are there places that we can find further savings? Because one thing that we do know is this city is going to grow and we're going to need more services in the future. And the challenge is going to be to provide those services, such as more police officers in the future and more improvements to roads and infrastructure. And how are we going to be able to continue to grow this city while still keeping tax increases to the lowest level that we can possibly do that? And I think we with the, certainly I'm happy with where we've landed today. Certainly with the help of my colleagues, and as Councillor O'Neill mentioned, not all of us agreed on everything, but the one thing that I think that we can all say is that we agreed on is we were really concerned about keeping the tax increases to a minimum while trying to do the best job that we could for providing services to our residents. In my short time on council, I've learned that it's a balancing act. And it's about making choices, and some of those choices are tough choices to make, and some of those decisions are tough. And I'm pleased that at the end of this that I think we've accomplished what I set out to do, which was make some improvements to our services and still reduce the tax increase to a level that's lower than what previous increases have been. And so for that reason, I'm certainly going to support this going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I haven't prepared a whole lot of speaking notes because you covered the ground very thoroughly. The budget's always been a challenge for all of us. It's the challenge of the year. We have great support from staff, but the numbers are large and the choices are many, and to try to get your head around every piece of it and down to the nth detail is impossible. It becomes, for me, and I think for many, a matter of trusting the process, asking the hard questions, constantly confirming my belief that we have the best staff, that they're completely honest with us. We're presented with the choices that we have to make, and we're presented with the best information to make them with. And I believe my job, and I think I've discharged it this year as in other years, is to constantly make sure that I am still able to believe that that's the case. And that's the case that I've found myself faced with again this year, that people provided me all the answers that I wanted. I'm an auditor, and I remember long ago the auditor's report said, I have obtained all the information and explanations I have required. And I have. And I'll be supporting this budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Reid.
Thank you. I want to thank Sheena and Arlene again for keeping us in line and doing such a great job. And I'd like to thank E-Team for their input. We are very lucky with our staff here. And I love it that they get to try and do our job before we get to do it. And they look over the budget and they look over the departments, and Sheena whips them into shape and makes them all reduce things. And then they look them over again and they come up with some suggestions that we might like and we might not like. But it certainly gives us a place to start from, and it's always good food for debate, which this council has a lot of. One of the things that we got asked for this year from a lot of our partners that we have, especially the arts and culture, were study dollars, because we know we're in a growth period here, and arts and culture is something that we have to move forward on. And we need, as Sheena always tells us, to have the horse go before the cart, and in that way we need not the other way around. And we need to do a careful look at how we're spending our money. And this year, I think this council wisely decided to take money and start on, I would say, a master plan. Perhaps that's the wrong word, but at least a good look at all our arts and cultural facilities, just as we're moving forward on the parks study and the parks master plan, and I think that's really important. I also think that we still need to look at expenses. Now, trying to go through the budget, and we go department by department, but into the expense department, the area that I'm most interested in getting into throughout the year, and we will do that with our finance department, is the money that we spend on doing jobs in-house as opposed to jobs that we sometimes contract out. And again, I guess it goes back to Councillor O'Neill, and stop doing what we've always been doing just because we've always been doing it, and maybe look for new opportunities in how to deliver the services, perhaps in different ways. I'm still looking for opportunities to reduce business taxes. In lieu of the difficulty of doing this and its complications, we are having the tax seminar as promised. It's going to be called Taxes 101, and it should be very informative for our business folks. Also, we're moving forward with our Tourism and Economic Development Office, and in 2014 we will have another addition to that office, hopefully to increase business and the prosperity of our business citizens, and hopefully that will help. It's obvious that we're a very high growth community. You just have to look around to see all that's happening. And yet this year we're able to deliver lower taxes, and you ask how? And through Sheena's magic, we're able to and trying to meet the challenges to do with growth within the dollars that we're earning from additional folks moving in and the additional revenues that we have coming in. I think they've done an admirable job. I think we have things to look at on the expense side, but all in all, I think this year's budget is pretty magnificent. I, again, will be looking probably through the base budget, and especially at some of the consultants that we have, but we bring consultants on board because it's easier to do that than to hire staff that we only need for interim solutions. So there are a lot of things that we can do. I'm very proud of this budget. It's been great that our staff has also worked hard on our solid waste commitments this year, so we're able to offer the citizens of this community, I think, probably a great tax rate, and thank you. I will be absolutely supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Zerillo.
Thank you. So, good evening, and just I will be voting for this budget tonight because it offers service enhancements such as additional police and fire protection that are needed to support our growing community. However, as a first-time councillor, I do have concerns. My main concern with this budget is that it is weighted on expansion in the northeast of the city where we currently have no transit. This full steam ahead approach with no transit will only increase traffic, congestion, parking infractions, speeding, and accidents. On the doorstep, residents told me traffic is their highest concern. We need to address these problems alongside expansion for responsible growth. With that in mind, this budget does not incorporate enough bylaw enforcement or other initiatives to address the mounting concerns around maintaining the character and safety of all of our neighborhoods. Lastly, there is not enough in this budget to create opportunities for good-paying jobs in Coquitlam. This budget has limited focus on building economic opportunities. Because of that, families will continue to need to commute to earn a living. Without commitment in this budget, in this area, it will be important for council and staff to bring forward initiatives that foster growth in our local economy as we move through the year. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Sikora.
Thank you very much. Now, I like a lot of things that are in the budget, so there's no question about it, except one thing, that we took money out of different funds to create this budget. And that creates a big problem, because it's a no-no. You could have never come up with this figure if you did not milk other funds to come up with this budget. First of all, there was a $700,000 fine by the department heads, Sheena McLeod and her Department of Taxation. That $700,000 should have gone for a business reduction in taxes and residential. $350,000 each, that would have cut it down. But no, we took that money, we spent it on our wish list. And wish list is something that, Mayor, makes me a little bitter. The fact is that, a wish list, something, if I had, I'd buy this. If I had, I'd buy this, and so on. But that's what it was spent on, no question about it. We're talking about public safety. Well, there was more than 2 officers asked for. With the chief of police on an E-team? No, he's not an E-team. These department heads decided what the level of policing is going to be in this community. They decided that we should only hire 2.
He's on the E-team.
Now, we mean business, people are complaining. Just last week, we had a public hearing. There was about 80 people in here. What were they complaining? Speeders, speeders, speeders. And you know what? They phoned the police station. You know what the police station says? There are people at the police station. We don't have the resources to enforce it. And for years we went on that if the chief asked for 6 policemen, there was no question about it. He got 6 policemen. Asked for 4, he got 4. There was no question. Now, the last few years, no. And what we're doing is saying, well, Port Coquitlam is not hiring, so we shouldn't be hiring. Would I care about Port Coquitlam, how many policemen they hire? They got their own mayor, they got their own council members. They make the decisions. I'm not going to make decisions for Port Coquitlam, neither should I. In our budget, there's $860,000 for consultants. Are those consultants listed what they're going to be used for? No. It's I want a consultant, I'm going to grab for this money. Oh, this department head needs a consultant, I'll grab this money, I'll grab this money, and so on. It goes on and on and on and on. It's not the way budgets are done, okay? I'm sorry. There's also $880,000 spent from bonus density. Bonus density, we give the developers a bonus density that they can build a high rise, whether it be 4 floors, 8 floors, whatever it may be. And where does that money supposed to go? To community center sports organizations. No, it was hiring 4 staff members. $880,000. Now there's $600,000 for a tourist manager. Where does it come from? Casino money. Well, we could have maybe put the police in front of casino money and called them tourists. They drive all over the city, so we could have called them tourists. Okay, but that's what's happening. Okay, and also.
I'm sorry. Which budget are you working on?
Pardon?
Go ahead.
Also, new money found in planning department and engineering. So what happens? There's a come to these council members and the mayor well, maybe the mayor knew about it. I certainly didn't know as a council member. I'm sure other council members didn't know about it. That the fact is, they found new money. Let's hire a whole bunch of staff, new bodies in the city hall. Let's hire some more bodies in the city hall. That's what they use the money for. That's taxpayers' money and should not be allowed. And certainly should be at least provided by the council, but it wasn't, okay? And you know, there's also, you know, just that bothers me is that we relocate parking lots in this city.
How do we do
We
that?
took Glen Park, parking lot, relocated to the other side, and guess what's on this side? That's a beautification for polygon development. $700,000. So far, we've spent $677, 258 cents, and guess what? There'll be an overrun. It's God made little apples. Because since the figure I got, there's been 12 or 14 employees there almost on a daily basis. So, you know, so I'm wondering what other things that we're going to, Polygon only gave us $303,000 for that. And we're spending over $700,000. So who are we,
We budgeted it.
What's being done behind closed doors? What are some of these people being promised? That bothers me, okay? There's certainly, you know, I mean, zero-based budget is the only way to go that you could certainly clean up of the way the budget is done. And you cannot take money out of some fund, like a casino fund or some density bonuses, and hire staff and say our taxes are low. They're not low because the future mayor and council members, whoever they may be, are going to be faced with some tough things to do that they'll take somebody to really correct it. That some hard-nosed person comes in and cleans it up. Because you're not supposed to take money out of these funds to create jobs. You can't do it. It's
That's why we
impossible.
didn't.
But we do it. So, you know, when you're talking about that, the taxes are going up by $15. Not correct. Not correct at all. $70 you're going to save on your waste because you're going to get your garbage collected every 2 weeks. Your taxes dollar is going to be $15. How can it be? I got an $85 tax bill, but I get $70 reduction in solid waste in here. So if I live in a multi-purpose place, in a multi-apartment, I don't get that discount because I'm not served by the city services. So what we're doing, see, that's why we have 3 people in public relations here at the city to spin things for us like this. Spin, spin, spin. Tell the people the truth. Look them in the eye and tell them exactly as it is. No use of playing games. You know, that somehow you're going to only pay $15 for taxes. It's not so, okay? So we have $7.8 million to $7 to $8 million from the casino. It's all capital, no doubt about it, but if it wasn't casino money, where would it come from? The taxpayers' pockets? And I asked also, what have we got in the budget for conventions and hotel accommodations and a few other things? I couldn't get that answer. It's all bunched up, and I'll tell you where it's bunched up. It is bunched up on it's the fund of saying it's course, training, seminars, conference, proof of meetings. So I can't bring out what is it that these council members are going to spend for conventions, hotel accommodations, and everything else. Just here a few months ago, the council got very chastised by the taxpayers of this community and the news media of what they spent for hotel accommodation, and that they stayed downtown. And I noticed that UBCM, most of the municipalities cut that out. So it must have impacted the whole lower mainland instead of just Coquitlam. But you know, so these are the things that are happening, and I cannot pull that out. And you know, in my years, you wanted to know how much is going to be for mayor and council for conventions? You could pull it out just like that. Any council member, you'd ask a council member, he'd be able to answer it like that. Not anymore, because it's hidden in seminars. You know, training and seminars. Well, you know, does that mean to say that somehow in training, you have to stay in the downtown hotel, expensive hotel, to get trained? Is that what it means? I don't know what it means. But however, I got a whole list here, and to me, what we've done is a budget that's been pulled out of, well, I know Sheena's great, and I'm not going to condemn her. Not to condemn her at all. But it's the management. It's the management that I must condemn, and it must be the mayor that must condemn.
Might as well.
Am I right? Because the mayor
I'm sure that's who you must condemn.
The mayor is the CEO, and you're responsible for every dollar in this city.
Yep.
And that's who I can blame. Okay?
There you go.
So I will not be supporting the budget.
As I predicted, Councillor Asmundson, you have your speakers.
Thank you very much. Speak on a few issues, maybe clear some things up a little bit. Throughout the year, Council makes decisions that affect next year's budget and future budgets. Some of the things we did this year that affected the budget is we approved a covered dry floor facility, cost $3.9 million of capital money. In this year's budget, since it will only be open for a portion of the year, it will be a $52,000 operating. And we know next, in 2015, there will be an extra $100,000 needed to cover the full years of operation. But Council knew that because when we get that plan, we get the capital budget and the operating budget, and we know what we're voting on. And those are the decisions that you make as a Council throughout the year that affect the budgets. If you don't want to affect the budget, you can vote those down. But Council unanimously approved that. We missed opportunities to save the taxpayers' money. Just last Monday, we had a development in here about a pathway. And I spoke about the fact the pathway should be upgraded because the developer is going to pay the cost. But Council, because the community said, no, don't leave it alone, but we're going to go and do a study about the pathways, and staff may come back and say they need upgraded. Well, that developer now is probably the happiest guy in the world because Council said leave it alone. He doesn't have to spend the $50,000 to upgrade the pathway. But in the future, the city taxpayer may have to pick up the cost of upgrading that pathway to accessible standards. These are decisions that we make throughout the year that affect the budget, opportunities that are missed that affect the budget, possible future opportunities in 2014 that is in front of this Council that could help us in future years also, is the Councillor Sikora, we listen to you and you could be polite and listen to other people. The YMCA Community Centre in Burquitlam is an opportunity of a partnership moving forward. The proposal in basic forms is we share the capital costs to build a potentially 50 to 60,000 square foot community centre in Burquitlam. The benefit to the city is that the YMCA picks up the operating costs. If you take the basic operating costs on this year's estimate, it would be about $1 million a year, not factoring in inflation. If you go over 40 years, probably more like 50 years, that's a $50 million savings in operating costs to the city. These are opportunities that, as a Council, you have to look at moving forward to look after the taxpayers of today and in the future. These are issues that make up the budget. Well, Councillor Sikora, the
YMCA was in camera.
The YMCA proposal, Councillor Sikora, came. No, it's not. It's been in public. It actually came to our committees. It came to my universal accessibility. It's come to my multiculturalism committee. It has been with the Oakdale and Burquitlam communities. It has been spoken out in the public. Mr. Sikora, you are incorrect. Again, that's not uncommon.
Thank you, Professor.
You're welcome.
Well, and in fairness, there are aspects of every planning decision that can be still in council, in camera rather. The existence of the YMCA in our community, the fact that the YMCA are interested in setting up a community centre here in Burquitlam, that's not in camera. That's obviously publicly known. It's been in the papers. That's obviously the details are not publicly known, but the fact that the YMCA is in town talking to folks about doing this, and the fact that we're excited about it, none of those are in camera matters.
Well, thank you. And being interrupted in my speech, I don't think it's happened to anybody else, but I want to echo Councillor Nicholson's comments about staff and the work that they do and the hard work that they do in putting together this budget. What we also do is we have what's called net zeros, and what we do before every budget, we make sure that staff looks into their budgets about reorganizing their budgets, their expenditures within those budgets, the positions within those budgets, and before they come to council asking anything, they come and see how they can reorganize existing budget resources to better and more effectively operate their department. They do that every year. Council requires that from staff, and that's something that they've done to this. Things don't stay stagnant in this organization. So that's a good thing, and it's an ongoing thing by staff, and I commend staff for the hard work that they do, for all the managers when they look and challenge their staff and their budgets to come up with more better and creative ways on how to manage their operations, and they're the experts in those fields. Economic opportunities, we've stepped up on it. We have an economic development manager. We've now, through the casino, hired a tourism manager to help promote this city, bring more people in this city, to spend their money in this city, and help our businesses in this city. We're making an investment in our business community, as I said before. It's an investment that we, the city, get no direct revenue back from. Businesses do, the provinces do. We have no sales tax ability like in other cities in the United States. We do not get a direct benefit, but we do this to improve the business community, improve the return, and more businesses opening up in Coquitlam is good for Coquitlam, and good businesses being successful is good for Coquitlam. All spending is approved by council. Those net zero requests and the changes that are brought forward have to be approved by council. Staff has to have direction by council. The casino funds are $7.2 million a year. 12.5% of that goes into our spirit grants or community grants. The remaining goes into capital, just to clarify that. Some people always vote against the budget. It's part of what they do. I said it last year and I'll say it again. It takes a commitment. It means taking on responsibility for the decisions that you made in making a budget. It also means being accountable to the public and standing up for those decisions in public that you've made. Some people like to have it both ways. They like to tell everybody that the city can build everything, hire as many police officers, do everything we want, then vote against the budget. But when you're voting against the budget all the time, you're not supporting the capital expenditures to do those new facilities, roads. You're not also then supporting the needed operational dollars that are needed for, people have unanimously voted for the new covered dry floor. What I think is a great idea. Councillor Wilson here before he came on council was very supportive of that. We've got that up and running, but it's a capital dollar cost, and there's an operating cost. If you didn't like the increases, you should have voted against it, but nobody did. So the budget is at this time of year, but I want to underline, again, all throughout the year, we make decisions that affect the budget moving forward. And that's our responsibility to always understand that effect on the budget going forward as we make that budget for the next year and its impact on the next year's budget. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple of comments of my own, a couple of clarifications I want to make as well, though. Someone mentioned wish lists. We all have things that we want to achieve in a budget, on a council. My own pet, actually, one of my pets was traffic safety around schools. We've had that going for 5 years now. I'm pleased to see us continue with that in a slightly expanded way because we've got so many of our schools that are partly done now. In fact, most of our elementary schools have had some improvements. We have to move to the middle schools. Those are important projects. Traffic safety, pedestrian safety in our community has been something that our council has been working on for a number of years, and I'm proud of what we achieved, but it's not always 100%. But we don't always make it, and we have more to do, and I want us to continue to work hard on making sure that where we can, make engineering improvements to our streets. We do that. We can really improve traffic safety in 3 ways. We can do it through education, we can do it through enforcement, and we can do it through engineering. And the only one that lasts a long time, actually, is the engineering improvements that we can make. We can improve sidewalks, we can improve crosswalks, and we can try to design our streets to be more forgiving of the challenges of bad weather or bad drivers or inattentive drivers and those sorts of things. And I think those engineering solutions, we need to keep pushing to put those in place. Enforcement, we could do more, and I wish we could do more faster. I would have supported 4 RCMP members, but it would have, again, increased the tax increase some more. I have never been influenced by the decisions that Port Coquitlam makes on that, although we do share the detachment. And this council has consistently made decisions based on what our community needs for police, not what other communities do or what Port Coquitlam does. This year I'm pleased that we're able to hire 2. I look forward to continuing to increase our police presence in our community. Now, the 4 firefighters are vitally important to us as well. Our wish lists typically are we'd like to speed up approvals, and that requires staff. And so quite often we redirect the development revenues in times when we're getting lots of development revenues. We redirect them into bringing in the staff in order to speed up the approvals process, speed up the inspections process to make sure that we're not having long delays at approvals. And that's, some council members raise those questions all the time and then raise questions about the staffing. And so that is something that we can't shorten approvals times without, particularly when development is going quickly, without actually having the staff in place. I'm glad that we have such a great staff team in development services. On the relocating of a parking lot, the parking lot that we apparently moved has always been there. It's been there for 20 years. So that is a little bit inaccurate, but we did actually close down an old parking lot that served the pool. We closed down the pool a couple of decades ago. I used to be a lifeguard at that pool, and that pool hasn't been there for 20 years, and now the parking lot isn't there anymore for the pool, but then the pool's not there. We're redeveloping that corner of the park to have some great amenities, some entrance features, and the parking is now on the street, which I think is perfectly acceptable. On the multifamily garbage side, there's no question that multifamily will get some benefit from the MMBC as well, because they won't have to pay to have someone else pick up their recycling. MMBC will be required to do it. So on a lot of these points, I think it's really important to take the bigger picture. I think it's important to examine all of the facts, and I'm glad that the staff in financial services, the same staff, Sheena and her team, that they're the ones that produced the $15 number. It's easy to subtract the total amount of the savings on the utility side from the total amount of the increase on the tax side, and you end up with that number. I think that this is a really good budget. I think we could tweak it. We could continue to, as Councillor O'Neill and others have said, there's other things we could do. But on balance, one of the comments in the budget speech was, we're a council that isn't driven by political ideology. We're a council that actually is independent, and we work well together. We fight all the time. We actually have lots of arguments about things, and because we have so many passions on our council, we have passions about lots of elements of our budget and about lots of elements of our city, and that's healthy. I think I would hate to have a council that always agreed on absolutely everything. This is a council that works out their differences, though, by and large, and I'm so pleased that we've got before us a budget that was largely based on the consensus in that room over there. And so I applaud all of council for their deliberations related to that. We're lucky. We have a casino. The casino is actually, there's a couple of restaurateurs in the room. The casino is going to produce them some tremendous benefits now because of the tourism dollars that we're trying to bring into this community, and that goes to the service industry. It doesn't really go to the consultants of the community. It doesn't go to the libraries of the community. It goes to the restaurants and the services for tourists. And so those benefits that we have traditionally in this community are things we're trying to capitalize on, and I think this budget does a good job of doing that. So I'll, of course, be supporting it. No other discussion? The motion is? Could you read out the motion again?
Many bylaws.
There is there's actually, the law requires that the clerk read out all of those bylaws. And I know he did, and I'm explaining that the law requires that he has to read that out, and every year we kind of ridicule him for doing it. The motion is before us. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Sikora is opposed, of course. The motion carries. The Coquitlam version of unanimous. Item 7.
Thank you, Your Worship. Item 7 concerns the 2014 water, sewerage, drainage, and solid waste rate amendments. The recommendation from staff is that Council give first, second, and third readings to City of Coquitlam Water Distribution Amending Bylaw 4454, first, second, and third readings to City of Coquitlam Sewerage and Drainage System Amending Bylaw 4455, and first, second, and third readings to City of Coquitlam Solid Waste Management Amending Bylaw 4456.
Move. Second.
Moved by Councillor Nicholson, seconded by Councillor Hodge. Councillor Sikora.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor.
Sewage,
You know,
water, drainage.
this is a great, I think it's a great contract and everything else, except I got one difficulty, and I'm not going to vote against it, but I think you're going to have a very, very loud cry from our residents that cannot get their garbage picked up only twice a month, every 2 weeks. I think you're going to have a great complaint on that. The fact is that, you know what, some people said to me, what if I'm away for a week or so? And I just missed the garbage day. That day, I'm going to wait another 2 weeks, or maybe 3 weeks or a month before their garbage is picked up. I think it's bad. I know that Port Coquitlam cut a lot of heat over every 2-week pickup, and I think we'll have the same thing. There goes the $70 saving that we're having. That's the $70 saving. Do we want to live with garbage pickup every 2 weeks for $70, which is a little better than $1 a week? I don't know, maybe yes, maybe no, but I'll tell you, I'm totally opposed to that every 2-week pickup as far as garbage is concerned, but I'm not going to vote against this, but I'm opposed to that for sure. I feel that it's not improving our service. Our taxes are going up. We have taxes are going up every year, like clockwork, you know, and again, Mayor, we got $1.5 million in new taxation this year with new apartments, new high-rises, everything coming aboard, yet our taxes keep going up. So you know what, doesn't matter how much new revenue we get, the taxes keep going up. Last and last barking, more and more high-rises. Take a look at it.
Councillor Zavilla.
Yeah, I also too just want to mention that I do have some concerns about the solid waste, but I too will be voting for this because I believe that in democracy and the council does want to, but I do have some concerns about the solid waste management because of some of MMBC is not quite defining everything that they're doing. So I just wanted to register that I do have some concerns, but I will be voting for this because I do believe in democracy, like I said, and the council approved it.
Okay. No other? Councillor Reid.
Your Worship, perhaps we should have the engineering department clarify what garbage will be picked up and when.
Sounds good.
I believe that organics are being picked up weekly.
Yeah.
Is that
Anything
correct?
that smells gets picked up every week. There you go.
Yes, through your worship, the green waste, the typical household remnants will be picked up weekly. The rest of the solid waste will be picked up every second week in automated containers. And before we implement a new system, there's going to be a lot of communication through council and directly to the public so that hopefully most people will understand the rules and the regulations and will be easier to follow for everyone.
Okay, thank you, because I think I didn't want there to be any, I mean, some of it's being picked up, Councillor Sikora's right, every second week, but with the diversion tactics that we're using now all across Metro, hopefully we won't have a lot of smelly garbage hanging around, hopefully, and the bears won't be coming sniffing around.
We'll tell the bears to come every week instead of every second week.
Yeah.
Only to your
The
house.
stuff that the bears want to eat gets picked up every week. Now, if the organics go in the green bin, it gets picked up every week, as it has to. Almost every community that I know of has switched to the residuals, which, if you've done it right, residuals don't smell.
Yep.
They get picked up every other week. They could get picked up twice a year from my perspective, because they're not going to be a problem. The problem is going to be the organics, and it always has been the organics, and we've diverted those into an organics bin, and to me that's entirely appropriate. So, Councillor Reid, you're done?
Yes,
Thank you very much. And the motion before us, the water, sewage, drainage, and solid waste rate amendments, all in favor? Opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
Item 8 is the 2014 fees and charges bylaw. The staff recommendations that council give first, second, and third readings to City of Coquitlam 2014 fees and charges bylaw number 4425.
Moved by Councillor Hodge, seconded by Councillor Nicholson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 9 is the citywide official community plan amendment bylaw 4421. This is the regional context statement. The staff recommendations that council give fourth and final reading to City of Coquitlam citywide official community plan amendment bylaw number 4421 as amended, and that the city communicate to Metro Vancouver that Coquitlam continues to have concerns about the regional growth strategy amendment process, but also supports ongoing work by Metro Vancouver to review and amend this process in order to improve clarity and implementation of the regional growth strategy.
Moved by Councillor Asmussen, second by Councillor Nicholson. And on the regional growth strategy amendment process, Councillor Reid.
I never thought we'd get here. I'm looking at Jim thinking, yahoo. So we're here. This has been probably the experience of a lifetime. And the interesting thing is the things that we thought in the beginning that would go wrong have gone wrong. And we sat there by ourselves in the beginning when we challenged it, this city challenged it, and we went down there and we stood up for our residents, which I'm pretty darn proud of. And at that time, no one else joined us. But as the months went on and the wrinkles started to appear, other cities started to believe exactly a lot of the things that we had mentioned. And now we are going back and having to take a look-see, and I believe Mayor Stewart's on the look-see committee, aren't you? Mm-hmm. Which I'm sure you're delighted to be there. I'm glad I'm not. And what's happening is now the wrinkles have to be sorted out with the other cities. And so it just sort of set my faith that when we actually went down there and fought for something that we believed in, it was really the right thing to do. But to staff, thank you, and to Raul, even though you've moved on to higher aspirations, thank you for all your work on this too. This has been a yeoman's job. So thank you to staff.
And when Councillor Reid said that Parks Department was higher aspirations from planning, all the planners laughed. Councillor Sikora.
Thank you very much, Mayor. You know, we're giving it fourth and final reading, but we still have some concerns. I wonder how our concerns are going to be addressed after giving it fourth and final reading. If I give fourth and final reading to any rezonings, I can have all the concerns I want in the world. It's not going to do me any good because they got their fourth and final reading and the door is closed. So tell me, is the door closed after the fourth and final reading? Why are we giving it fourth and final reading?
Because our door is good. It's other cities.
This is only our regional context statement. We wrote it, and voting against something we wrote would be odd. Now that it's been approved by Metro, the parts that we're opposed to are parts that Metro wrote, and they're not on the table right now. They're not in the motion.
Not here.
So they're going to still listen to us, are they?
Oh, of course.
Well, they're going to listen to us related to the regional context statement, which we wrote, and which is the subject of this motion.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. And I will explain that I am on the supposed fix-it committee. A couple of years ago, and I'm proud of all of council because this was a tough moment. I'm proud of City Manager Pete Steblin who stick-handled good portions of that element. Jim McIntyre, our General Manager of Planning and Development, who had two hats when he was going through that process, a good amount of staff support. But we stood up as the only community. There was two of us initially. Port Moody was the other one. Port Moody was immediately convinced to withdraw their objections on the grounds that it would all be worked out. Subsequently, it turned out that no one is left in the Metro Vancouver that remembers saying that to Port Moody, so they've had to work out their differences in another way. But one of our main objections was that we didn't understand how a dispute would get handled, a theoretical dispute. And in fact, I remember the wording, it said, could you show us how a theoretical dispute would get worked out, how it would get managed at Metro Vancouver? And we never got the answer to that question, although we did get the answer to some of our questions, and we managed to get some gains by standing up. But nonetheless, we were beat pretty hard in that process. The other day, I had the opportunity in one of the Fix-It meetings to say, it's too bad that one of the communities of Metro didn't ask how a theoretical dispute between a municipality and Metro would get worked out. Because if someone had asked that, we could have figured this all out before we passed the entire regional growth strategy. It was one of those I told you so moments that no one else laughed in that room, but I hear a couple of people laughing in this room. It was a difficult process. I probably wouldn't do it again, but we did gain some stuff, and I think Metro ended up with a better regional growth strategy, and also perhaps a little bit more humility when they now realize that everything we said would happen, and it has happened. But we won't gloat because there's bigger things on the horizon we need to achieve as a region. So the motion is the regional context statement as put forward by the City of Coquitlam and finally accepted with praise from Metro Vancouver staff. All in favor? Opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
Item 10 is...
That was easy.
I took away that button, please. Item 10 is consideration of fourth and final reading of zoning amendment bylaw 4410 and a development permit authorization for 3410 Roxton Avenue for 6 small village single-family residential lots and 8 street-oriented village homes. The recommendation from staff is that council give fourth and final reading to City of Coquitlam zoning amendment bylaw 4410 and that they approve the signing and sealing of the DP and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute it.
Councillor Reid moves fourth and final on DP, seconded by Councillor Nicholson. Councillor O'Neill.
You know, this is something that I just realized over the weekend in reading this, and it's a question I probably should have asked a year or two ago, but it's about the development permit process here. So we're being asked to approve a development permit not only for the homes, which makes sense to me, but for lots. Did the formation of lots need a development permit?
Lots of homes. Sorry, it's lots of homes.
Residential lots. So there's 6 lots on one side of the this package, and 8 lots in the other, and there's 8 homes being built on the street-oriented village homes there, which is fine. I understand why we're development permit there, but I don't understand why we need a development permit to approve the lots, to let the lots go forward. Why don't we just finish the rezoning on that?
Mr. McIntyre on the individual subdivision.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. And I can understand how it might be a little confusing. But the RTM1 zone is unique. You're creating lots. They're bare land straddle lots. But basically, it's a townhouse form. It's a row house form, so it's multifamily. And typically, multifamily housing, multifamily residential development, comes through a development permit process. So there, in a sense, it's a townhouse, like I think it's 8 units connected together, but each one's sitting on its own bare land straddle lot. The other part of the application, that's right, on the upper side, the narrower lots, that's the RTM1. The lots on the lower side, those are RS7, and those are standard single-family, fee-simple properties. There isn't a development permit associated with that.
There is not?
There is not.
But it says 6 small village single-family residential lots.
Because that's also part of the rezoning bylaw. The rezoning bylaw applies to both the RTM1, that's the row houses, and the RS7.
I know that, but does a development permit apply to lots too? Because it's the way it reads. It says.
Okay, it should read, consideration fourth and final reading of zoning amendment bylaw for this property, including 6 small lot and 8 street-oriented townhomes, and a development permit for the townhomes.
Right, and the way this reads is development permit for lots, right? Right in the very top paragraph in bold there.
The development permit portion of it doesn't apply to the lots.
development permit for 6 small village single-family residential lots.
Again, I'm sorry that at least the title of the report is a little confusing. It's not, the development permit does not apply to those 6 lots. It applies just simply to the RTM1 lots.
Well, that makes absolute sense to me. Thank you very much.
So if it was worded with the end development permit brackets, moved to the end of the sentence.
Whatever, you know, it needed a good editor. Oh.
Yeah, we should have had an editor. Okay. Oh boy, that's what we need is council members editing. I don't see this ahead of time.
Good.
So, yeah.
Thanks very much.
No, I appreciate it. That's you're right. It is potentially confusing.
I will review the reports more closely in the future.
And development permit for the lots. Oops.
Same on the next one as well.
Yes. The same issue applies to both report number 10 and report number 11. They're mirror image developments across the street from each other. And on number 10, all in favor?
Ask a question?
I thought you, okay.
Sorry, I was reading.
Councillor Zarello.
Yeah, I just had a quick question about, I'm looking at attachment 7 that talks about the residential 8 spaces off-street parking, visitors 8 spaces off-street parking. So I just had a question about these townhomes, they're called. Do they have basements? Because I'm concerned that these 1 parking spot, 2 sometimes, and if there is a suite put in these that yeah, but
these won't be permitted to have suites, but that doesn't
stop them. So I'm just
matter.
wondering if there's basements.
Okay. Okay. We're just waiting for an answer on that one. I don't think there's actually access to the ground, the basement floor from the outdoors. So it would be almost impractical to. No, it's almost ground level, although sloping lots. I think if there is a basement or a crawl space, it doesn't have access to the outside, so you'd have to go through the living space of the upper floor.
Space?
If there is a basement or a crawl space, I'm not saying that there is one or the other, but Mr. McIntyre.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. If you look at attachment 5, and that's the fold-out colored sheet, it shows both the front and rear and side elevations. And if you look at, I draw your attention to the elevation at the bottom right-hand corner, and you can see that it's the slope falls away. So it's like half the foundation is out of the ground at the back. This would, mind you, this would be the end unit, but you can see windows there in the basement. So that would mean that the 2 end units would have windows, but there's no access to the outside from the basement area. The other units, the internal units would have no windows whatsoever on the sides, so it would be a pretty barren space. The other thing Raul was just mentioning this to me, with this type of development, where it's a strata council, the units are, it's a strata development, and the strata tends to better self-police itself than in other instances. It's not impossible, but it's unlikely that the secondary suites here.
So just one quick clarification. So there is a garage plus a pad for parking in each of these, or it's just 1 parking per resident and 1 extra one between the lanes?
That's correct. There's a garage, a parking pad, and the garages have been offset far enough off the lane to actually have a standard driveway in front.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, is there anything else on that? I appreciate that kind of question. You might as well. It's important to ask now. So we've got Councillor Hodge.
Okay, I'm glad that somebody's asked the parking question, and we've taken care of that. The other question I'm going to ask is that I believe that when this originally came to us, there was some discussion about a green street. And looking at this diagram, it looks like now, because of where the lanes are, we're not going to have a green street here, or maybe it's to the side. And when Mr. McIntyre can sort of explain if, in fact, we have a green street, or if it's the one next door, just what the deal is, if that's still on the books.
Mr. McIntyre.
Sure. There is, it wasn't mentioned earlier with the, I believe, the first reading consideration that there was an opportunity for a green street. That would be more connected with the lands to the west. If you look at attachment 3, it shows the subject properties. There's still 2 lots to the west before you hit Coast Meridian. You need to have legal access to those corners along with the lane access, but there is the opportunity along that frontage there to have a green street. And so there'd be a pedestrian connection from the end of Roxton to the cul-de-sac bulb out the Coast Meridian. So that would be the concept in that case there.
Because Roxton is not going to connect through to Coast Meridian because it's going to go through the SPIA area. So what will happen is that that's just a narrow walkway or greened right through. Is that the plan then?
Perhaps Raul can speak to this. He was involved in the earlier stages of the development. And also, too, I understand that there's some parks planning for the west end of Darwin Avenue as well.
I'll just touch on the Green Street. Mr. McIntyre is correct. It's the lands to the immediate west. The surfacing works for this project include pavement all the way out to Toronto so that we're able to actually close off the portion towards Coast Meridian at this time. There's going to be a cul-de-sac bulb, and that's all going to be finished now, and that way there's no traffic through that space. The hope is that we can actually recover all of that space through a lane closure, a road closure, where those properties come forward for redevelopment, and that's when we'll actually look at a green street, developing a small green street between the project and Coast Meridian. But we did take the opportunity through this application to build all the works out. This developer is building some pavement all the way out to Toronto to complete that portion and be able to close that, the westerly portion now. So we would see that coming forward as part of a future project. We've already identified this and hopefully looking to get those developments forward and get that concept in.
Okay. Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Yes. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks. I just wanted to congratulate you on an innovative solution to parking. I thought that's great, and hopefully, because there's such narrow lots, to get 3 parking spaces in each one is great. So, congratulations.
Your Worship, if I can, in talking to the staff that are involved with the application, we've heard about the concerns for parking up in the northeast. The subject properties here, they have the benefit of having some fairly deep depths, and so there's space that you can work with there. You have room for a lane at the rear, which is an efficient means of access. But there's enough depth there you can offset the garage and still have a usable rear yard and still a buildable building envelope for the dwelling as well. So you have that benefit. The developer was willing to capitalize on that.
Absolutely. And I look forward to the Green Street, although this one's a short one. And I look forward to many more Green Streets. I'd love to see us embrace this completely. If we look at attachment 4, shows the bulb at the end of this development, and the Green Street would be that portion shown on attachment 3 that goes west of that. But a good portion of it is in the SPIA, and it actually, I think, will be a nice amenity and almost a very natural setting for that park-like front street. But I'd look forward to seeing a great many more of this kind of amenity, even short ones, but I prefer the kind that we have up in the other area of Burke Mountain. And absolutely, it does limit the crossing of the creek. In this case, it completely eliminates a creek crossing that has been in the plan for some time. This is great. Seeing no other speakers, motion is fourth and final, and a development permit on some of it. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Now let's repeat our discussion on this next item.
Item 11 is fourth and final reading of zoning amendment bylaw 4411 and the development permit authorization for 8 street-oriented village homes. And in addition, it's approval for 6 small village single-family residential lots. Staff recommendations that council give fourth and final reading to Coquitlam zoning amendment bylaw 4411 and approve the signing and sealing of the DP.
Moved by Councillor O'Neill, second by Councillor Sikora. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 12 is proposed lane cancellation application for land adjacent to the Burquitlam Community Garden and 554 Foster Avenue, 636, 638, and 640 Aspen Street. This is bylaw 4450. Staff recommendation is that council give first, second, and third readings to City of Coquitlam Highway Dedication Cancellation bylaw 4450 and direct that this bylaw be advertised in accordance with the community charter.
Moved by Councillor Aspenson, second by Councillor Nicholson. Councillor Sikora.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
You're welcome.
They're meeting the parking standards.
More than meeting them in this one.
Mr. McIntyre?
Through the chair, yes, they have. In fact, and this was the rezoning that was here for final last week in the DP. In some cases, they're in fact exceeding it with a variety of parking solutions on site.
Thank you very much.
And Councillor Sikora, you are certainly consistent. You ask that every time.
You better believe it. I just want to make sure
every time this application comes before us.
Regulation.
Good, good. And we're at fourth reading now. Councillor Reid.
Thank you. On attachment A, no, I lied, attachment 1. Is the layout and the interior streets exactly, is it going to be built? Because I see conflicting, of course, they're just lots behind and I see some roads built in, but is this going to be the actual layout?
Your Worship,
Mr. Alueva.
He just wants to be out of parks now and back in planning.
He wants to be in both. No one's asking him.
This is what you call teamwork.
Mr. McIntyre.
I know it is.
Mr. McIntyre with input from Parks.
So attachment 1, this is what we showed the folks, and I want to make sure they're getting what we showed them.
That's correct. This is the attachment when they went with the development permit, and it shows the new lane system and access road into the site.
So is the answer yes? Attachment 1 is what we're getting. That's what we're building.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Zerillo.
Ask again about the community garden. I think I brought this up last week or the week before. Can you just confirm again, will there be damage to the current community garden as they close up this lane?
Yes, Your
Mr.
Worship.
Alueva.
No, in fact,
I can't get your microphone on. Hang on a second.
You got 2 in there.
Okay, yes.
There you
No, in fact, the closure was intended to protect the existing community. Community garden currently encroaches on the lane allowance, and it encroaches on various locations, both along Whiting Way as well as the lane. In this case, the lane is being closed, paid for by the developer, money for that going back to the community garden, so it's a double win for the city, and it's in fact intended to protect the riparian area that's been enhanced by the community garden in that location. So that's the intent.
I think that's what I heard last time, but I just wanted to confirm. Thank you.
Okay. Lane cancellation. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 13 is the Queenston Park Detailed Design Plan. Staff recommendations that Council approve the Queenston Park Design Plan, that Council authorize the reallocation of $300,000 from the 2013 budget earmarked for Gillies Trail to the Queenston Park project, and that Council further authorize the allocation of $85,000 from General Reserve to include a sports court at Queenston Park.
Moved by Councillor Aspenson, second by Councillor Hodge. Councillor O'Neill wants to edit the report. Or something. No, Councillor O'Neill.
Fine. The report says that the council and committee directed staff to include a sports court. Actually, quite don't remember it as a specific direction, but maybe it was a general overall feeling. In those sorts of instances, I was just surprised that it came on a committee discussion that sort of becomes a fait accompli. I would have thought there'd be another intervening step here, and I don't remember there being an intervening step between the general discussion in committee and this for the addition of the sports court. As good of a facility as it is, I'm just interested in the process here. And maybe somebody can refresh my memory here, but I don't remember a specific, like
Well, Your Worship, I'd love my memory refreshed also, as you know, but of course, I'm kidding. I've only been here a month, but I have gone through all the records. I can tell you I've gone through in exhaustive fashion. We went through the council and committee minutes, and there was direction from council. The original design plan, and so there's a concept plan prepared first of all, and that goes to council and committee. That gets vetted, and then council gives us some direction. The plan for Queenston Park that came forward at that council and committee meeting did not have a sports court. It had some a little bit more modest elements. It had not gone to the advisory, to the Universal Accessibility Committee, and it did go twice following that. We did try and take all that input, and by no means does that mean that we're going to come back specifically with a court. Okay, it was certainly direction provided. There was other direction provided as well. For example, there was a comment around providing some of the environmental space, enhancing that, making sure that we had pathways that were accessible. So there was other commentary provided. We did look at those seriously, and we did look at the design, and following that, and following 2 rounds of review by the Universal Accessibility Committee, we felt that very much an enhanced park was something we could bring forward for council consideration. That did include an enhanced scope because of those reasons, and as the report has noted, a number of those elements have increased, particularly the sport court. As council well knows, a sports court cannot be funded by development cost charges, so it is going to draw from our general revenue in all cases. It could be anywhere from $50,000 to $85,000, depending on the amount of grade, etc. So
I think the specific reason that I asked was that my feeling as well, there might have been in council this feeling that there should be a sports court. I wanted to make sure that the staff didn't just say, okay, we better put in a sports court, whether or not we think it's a horrible idea. And our studies show that our first design is really better. We've looked at this extensively, and nobody will use this sports court, or it's the wrong size, or something like that. We represent the public here. We have sort of opinions and feelings, but if there's something out there that was very strongly indicated that very strongly indicated that a sport court wasn't needed, I would have liked to have heard back from that. So I've got to presume that everything was weighed, and that I guess so that process for your decision making, you're the experts with all the degrees in park planning and things like that, and so I want to make sure that that's just not us on our putting our antenna up thinking it's a good idea.
Please reassure us, Mr. Aluewa.
Yeah, I can do that. This is a neighborhood park. It's a neighborhood park level. It's intended to provide access to residents for immediate park needs, 5 to 10 minute walk. It's not a community level park. So if, for instance, one of the other council members had asked for a parking lot or a bathroom or a tennis court, we'd say, well, I'm sorry, that's not the level of park this represents. A neighborhood park does include 5 or 6 key components: open grassed area, typically, some natural elements, trees, environmental area if it exists, playgrounds for 2 levels, tots and children, and a hard court surface if possible, if it can fit in. Typically we provide the half court because it can fit into a neighborhood park. So if council had asked for a bathroom, we would have said, we're bringing it back without a bathroom because it does not fit. You want parking? I'm sorry. You want lights? I'm sorry, we don't recommend that. But we can certainly provide the menu of options for a neighborhood park level to council in this case. Does it need to have a hard court space? No, it can function with a grass space. But we are taking the opportunity to provide that menu of options for this council.
Good, thank you. And I compared this plan with the plan that was originally in front of us, and so you seem to have kept most of the elements of the old park. Probably, I think there's just a little less plaza space, and there's not a lookout plaza, things like that. I think we lost one top swing area, but there's still a top play area, which is important. So that all seems to be there. thanks. Thanks for those answers.
Thank you. Councillor Zerillo.
Well, as one of my colleagues mentioned earlier in the day, these things kind of evolve over the year, and so as a new councillor, I don't have all the background, but what I do, what seems glaring to me is we're 50% or more, I didn't do the math, but I know 50% for sure, over budget on this park. And through the process of budgeting this year, I've had many conversations where I've been told that DCCs are paying for the growth in Burquitlam. No, don't worry, DCCs are paying for it. DCCs are paying for it. And I would think that the DCCs were paying $620,000 for this park. And now we're looking for, I think it's $1,005,000. So my question would be, how is it regular practice for us to be 50% over budget? And secondly, if we have money that didn't come from the DCC that's in general revenue, shouldn't we be using it to bring up to standard some of the other parks that may be below standard in Coquitlam before we start adding extras to parks that are brand new?
Your Worship, well, on the question of general revenue, yes, it's really Council's decision whether to include the general revenue for the general revenue component. It's actually Council's decision today to decide whether to take some of those monies that have been set aside in the 2013 budget for Gillies Trail, which we assume we will not need, hopefully, by this year. So we feel that that is something we can do. It is Council's decision to decide to take that general revenue and put it elsewhere, either in large sports courts or elsewhere in the city inventory. We would look for that to be under a priority system, and we want to make sure we're aligned with our council in terms of how those priorities come together, because our staff work very hard in terms of working and not doing things and making sure we're all aligned fully beyond council's priorities. That's very important to us. This is not a typical situation. I've looked back at some of the other parks in the Northeast, including Millard Orchard and Galloway. Both were in budget. One of them had $50,000 from a developer to build a half sports court. This is not typical. I have not found in the short time since I've posed the question earlier today. I've had my staff research what happened in those parks, and those were not over budget. So I don't anticipate this is going to be any kind of a typical scenario. I can tell you we'll work hard to work within budget. But the reality is that for many reasons, the steeply sloping lot, the unit rates used to do some of the original projections may be slightly off, but really we've added a number of budget scope elements which really have enhanced, and certainly council can look at removing those or downscaling those. If we get that direction from council, we'll certainly go back and sharpen our pencils and remove some of the elements that are shown here, or bring down the scale of those elements to a reasonable amount. Certainly the sports court could be eliminated, and certainly some of the other grading elements, such as the very unique playground equipment there, could also be downgraded. And you can use wooden stairs instead of concrete stairs. There's lots of things you can do to trim the budget down. Certainly it'd still be a very, very nice amenity in the neighborhood. This is just an option for council.
So can I make a statement, or can I only ask a question?
Well, you certainly can make a statement.
Can you? Okay. Yes. So I did drive by this area, and I see that there's lots of Queenston that is still large lots or empty lots, like it isn't even developed yet. So that would be one of my concerns, is that, how many residents are we serving at Queenston Avenue today, and how many are we going to be serving in 5 years? And I don't want to throw that question out right now because it's not fair to ask you, but I will want to ask you later through the chair. But I would like to say that I do believe that if we have a budget for $620,000 for a park that comes from the DCC, then we should make a park that costs $620,000. And I think, I would love to drive a luxury vehicle myself, but the reality is, I have a budget that I work within, and I would rather see this go back for replanning. I think it's an opportunity to show the community that we can make a park within budget in the DCCs that we've told them that we are using for these growth areas.
Thank you. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, any Irishman can be an editor.
No.
So on the on screen in front of me, it says authorize allocation of $85,000 from general reserve, but on the printed report on my computer it says general revenue. It is general revenue?
That is correct. The report is correct.
Thank you. And that was not my only point. But it takes a moment to scroll down to the other one. So the same paragraph that talks about council direction to include a sports court, the last sentence says request for consideration of public washrooms was also identified. These are not typically provided in neighborhood parks and would add substantially to the cost. Everything we do adds to the cost. And I think if anybody doesn't know that I'm a fan of public washrooms, I am. And I also understand the budget constraints. But I'd like to know whether in designing this park and other neighborhood parks in the future, consideration is given to the potential for eventual placement of public washrooms, so that the design of the park does not preclude the possibility.
Mr. Oliver.
Your Worship, yes, we don't summarily, dismiss the opportunity. You're absolutely correct. If you have, for instance, a small, like a Super 8 field, you might, in Victoria, Park, Lee Park, there was some consideration. We talked about it. We didn't include it, but we certainly considered it. It really depends. If you look at this particular park, there's single-family residences all around it. It's a little bit more closed in. It's less in a kind of an open location. So we use a lot of factors to determine its draw, its usability. There's a lot of those factors that come into that. But we certainly do not, quite often these are all upgraded roads. You could easily put in services, pipe in those services, cap them. We haven't looked at having connections stubbed out for a future washroom facility. That has not been done. We could certainly look at that as a future course of our planning.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now, Councillor Reid.
Thank you. Well, I'm so happy to see the sport court here. They are just the most popular thing with the kids, and I think it's wonderful for outdoor activity. The washrooms, I thought we were putting plumbing in on some of them. Didn't we on Mr. McIntyre, did we not? Didn't we allow for plumbing on what I call the, the spaceship one? Where are we?
Galloway?
Is it Galloway? Yeah.
You're referring to Martian Park.
Martian Park, thank you.
Which we renamed Galloway.
Yeah, Galloway has a splash park, so that's
right. That's right.
So
I think we talked about your washrooms at that one, and so we did. There is opportunity, and I think that's really good. But this is where how we save money. Like when you started talking about Millard and the other we call, I can't remember, Marguerite Park, is it? No.
Millard
another
Orchard.
One.
There's Galloway, and there's Marguerite.
Yeah, and there's Millard.
Yeah,
Yeah. So two of the parks, we worked with our developers and got them to contribute, just for Councillor Zerillo to know, so that when we shuffle money around sometimes, it's because we have some, because some of the developers will come forward and build the parks, because basically they built the houses and they want the parks to appear at the same time. I think this is great. I like it. I'm not at all concerned about the funding here. I'm glad we moved money over from Gillies. I think it's the right thing to do and get the parks going while we have the people. I wanted to ask you about interest on DCCs. We can use the interest for enhancing the parks. Is that not correct? And if you don't know, it's okay. I can wait for Sheena.
Yeah, there are intricacies around DCCs if we borrow. But it depends if you've borrowed for that. I would leave it to the financial manager to answer that question.
I'm sure you would. And I just picked up that gem at Finance at Metro. And I thought, wow, if they can do it, we can do it. So that's something I would like to pursue.
We can certainly do that, and I think there is a bit more flexibility with the interest component,
Yes.
but generally we keep them as dedicated funds, but we can look at alternate ways.
No, I know that, and I just thought it was a gem to pick up, and naturally when I can pick up free money, I like to do it. So thank you, and thank you. This is going to be a successful park.
Thank you. Councillor Hodge.
Yeah, I just for clarification, we're not actually over budget. We are setting an amount to be spent, and it's greater than what was originally planned. But that's because we've put some more amenities in there based on the community feedback. I mean, I really like the sport courts. I live in Burke Mountain. I'm fortunate that I have one behind my place, and my kids use it constantly. I think that one of the challenges that we're seeing is that up on Burke Mountain, we don't have the other amenities right now, and we are building a very dense community up there. You know, the density is high. We're hoping someday to have transit, but in the meantime, we are building that type of community. We don't have backyards there. If you just have to flip back a few pages and look at the development that just was approved on Roxton, the garages are at the lane, and there's probably 10 feet between the front step and the sidewalk. These homes up in Burke Mountain do not have yards. And, you know, I would rather have the kids out playing in a sport court than in their bedrooms playing video games. And I think that we have to get kids out, and in absence of parks, schools, even the streets aren't an option up there because there's so many cars, or the streets are on a slope, that this is the only place that kids on Burke Mountain have to play right now. And I think we have to encourage kids to be active and to get out in their own neighborhoods. One of the things that I am also pleased about in tonight's budget, and I alluded to, and hopefully that proceeds and if passed, was a proposal in there to start doing sport courts. And I think they're wonderful, and I think we have to start doing them throughout the city. I think we have to go back into some of our existing neighborhoods where we have a chance to do some improvements and look at putting sport courts in there. And you know, and I just think that that's it has to be a standard for all of our parks. Not every park can accommodate it, and others may have other amenities that double up. But certainly in these areas right now, well, there's nothing else there. I think we are doing the wise thing by getting the parks in when the people move in, instead of just chasing along a couple of years behind. The problem that we've got is that we have needs throughout the city. And, you know, and we talked earlier tonight about trying to hold the line on the budget. I wish I could do more, and do more for all the parks, and do more for this park. But again, we have to watch the bottom line. So all of these decisions become a compromise between providing what we can, and at the same time, you know, keeping an eye on the bottom line. I think this is a good design on this one, and I'm going to support it. Thank you.
Councillor Asmussen.
Well, thank you. I think this is a good design. It's been to my committee, universal accessibility, and I'm glad that staff looked at making this more accessible by taking out the 5R, putting the rubber port, and making it more accessible. And I raised a couple of times about their budgeting for park amenities, and in the budget there's an increase in park amenities to make sure all our parks throughout the city are fully accessible and not going a cheaper route at doing it. We put parks and upgrade parks throughout the whole city, just not one. We put about $100 million into the Poirier Center, a new arena, a new pool, and the Centennial Center. We invest in the expansion of Dogwood with the library in that area. We put a sport court in Como Lake School, Charles Best Field. We do projects throughout the area. We shouldn't be pitting one area having more than not the other. We tend to balance out, and if you look through our capital plan, we have projects and improvements in parks in all parts of the city and moving forward. And I think staff has done a good job. They listened to what council had recommended that needed to be done, just not in this parks, but all the parks within the community. And I do applaud them for stepping up and making this more accessible in the way that had been originally planned. And I know all the people on the accessibility committee will be very pleased about that. So I want to thank staff for a good job and the work that they do, and what the work we do in improving parks throughout the city for all our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. I actually want to acknowledge Councillor Zrillo. Prior to her arriving on council, I was the only member of council in the south half of our community. I was the only member of council in the west half of our community, for that matter. And we now have two of us, and we're both apparently going to spout off the same stuff because there is only one park in South Coquitlam between Austin Avenue and Brunette.
Yes.
From Mundy Road all the way over to Blue Mountain, there's one park. It's undeveloped. It's called Rochester Park. It used to be Rochester Pool. People knew it as that, but it's not a pool anymore. It's some parkland, but it's not usable as parkland, really. And part of it is used as part of the field for middle school. That's the only park in South Coquitlam, apart from Mackin, which we've recently improved. This is the first improvements in many years. So I do acknowledge that we need to do some work in South Coquitlam. We need to do a lot of work in South Coquitlam. And it does concern me when a project doesn't so much go over budget, but goes over allocation, because the allocation was for 600 and something thousand, and it's over that allocation, and so we're having to take when we establish the construction budget here, it will be $1,055,000. That'll be the construction budget, and we are adamant that our projects come in on or under budget. Once we allocate a construction budget to it, but it's over the allocation, and that concerns me. I think I do want to have us take another look at the poured surface, because we don't even have a poured surface at our two wheelchair accessible parks. Our original wheelchair accessible park in Town Centre Park, our wheelchair accessible playground, it's the wood chip, and it has served us well. There was originally some concern by the Disability Issues Advisory Committee at the time. I was the chair, and yet they worked through their concerns, and we ended up, I think, with a very good surface. So I recognize that the applications are different, but this is also not a destination park. This isn't meant to be a destination park, whereas Town Centre's wheelchair accessible playground is a destination park. If we're going to allocate this much money for a neighborhood park in one neighborhood, we're going to have to start looking at those neighborhoods that don't have any parks at all. Not that don't have this kind of park facility, but that don't have any parks. There isn't a sport court in South Coquitlam. There isn't a sport court south of Austin. There are now 3 sport courts I guess 3 or more sport courts in Burke Mountain, and we don't have 10% of the population that we have in South Coquitlam. So I want to see us look at the rest of Coquitlam. ROC deserves some of the elements here. I absolutely believe in play. The value of play for children is enormous. Councillor Hodge just mentioned that play versus video game, I want them to get out and play. I want them to have those amenities to play in. But in South Coquitlam, they don't have the park space, they don't have those amenities, and we've got work to do there as well. Councillor Sikora.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor. You know, I support this. I think it's a good development, and it's something that's needed. But I think, you know what, I spoke some time ago, and I spoke about 4 or 5 times now on issue. Years ago, we used to have a developer instead of DCCs, they turned over a fully developed park. Now, I know Victoria will say you can only use a certain amount of money to buy land for parks, but you have no money for development. I don't know. Those days, we used to have the developer turn over a fully developed park, and Victoria didn't squawk at all. We never had any problems with him. And now, those are the good old Don Cunnings days when he had this done, and certainly worked like a darn. And I think that, you know what, we need to look at it again. I know that we can ask the developer to turn over a fully developed park, and you would have no problem. And a developer, when they're building, they want to see a park for their residents right next to what they're paying for. So I think it'd be a good idea to take a look at it. I'd like to get a report on it. Why can't we do it again? I'd like to at least don't write a 10-page report or a 20-page report, just a simple yes or no.
Perhaps an entrance plaza at Glen Park or something like that. Mr. Alweva.
Yeah, so as an example, no, it's a good comment, and there are always opportunities. If a developer is developing land next to our park or are dedicating land that is going to be park, and they have development cost charge credits that we can utilize. There is an opportunity for us to utilize those DCC credits and put extra funds or have them. So we've done that. For instance, Mosaic, Cottonwood Park is about a $300,000 park project, which was essentially built by Mosaic on our land, utilizing, that's a straight contribution. So we are doing that, and Mosaic is building the park. We're actually speccing it all out, and we're looking at all of the, we're overseeing the work, but they're doing the work for us. So we are doing those type of projects still. Years back, under land use contracts or other types of development agreements, it was more common, but development cost charges were not as well founded and established. So really, development cost charges have taken the place of many of those old development agreements, which is why we rely mostly on DCCs
Thank
today.
you very much.
Okay, Councillor Reid for the... Actually, I'm going to set aside Councillor Reid for a minute. I apologize.
You what? What did you do?
No, Councillor Reid, go ahead.
Two things. If this, Councillor Zerillo, if this council, these gentlemen had have listened to me, we'd still have the pool at Rochester. But no, they had to fill the pool in.
Yeah,
I happen to think
water.
an outdoor pool is a wonderful thing. Of course, we had a study by geniuses that tell us that we don't need them, but I happen to think it's wonderful. The other thing I have to mention to you is that in the south of Coquitlam, we have put a lot of money out of casino funds into playgrounds that are attached to schools, because although we didn't have as many parks there, we had the school grounds became our sort of neighborhood parks. And we would go to the tune of, I would say, 50,000, Councillor Asmundson, around there, per playground. So we put that into the schools, which are supposed to be parks. No, I think this is a really good discussion to be having. When we got a first major development, Mosaic, we had parkland set aside, and we worked with them to do a park there. As the place in Burquitlam develops, we will be doing parks and other things. But because this is budget night, the one thing I wanted to say to folks, excuse me? What am I, what do you mean I'm out of order? Sure, I'm on the edit. Well, you do, so I can. So what I want...
Sorry, did Mayor Sikora rule you out of order?
Yes. He thought he did, but he knows better than to try.
Well, he must be right.
So what I wanted to remind people tonight, years ago, we had where you could bequest funds to the city, and usually it was we had park benches, we had trees, we had all kinds of things pop up in the parks. We got so that we had so many benches, we had to start doing other things with the money. We did memoriam boulevards, we've done all kinds of things. So to the developers who are watching out there tonight, and hope for these lots, you'll stop me from chasing you to put stuff in the parks if you just come forward and say that you'd love to do it. And to those folks that want to invest in our parks or perhaps put some special piece of equipment in the parks, you just have to phone Mr. Alahueva, and he would be glad to match you up out of our catalog of all the things that we love with things that you could perhaps donate to the parks. And this is in the old part of Coquitlam or the new part of Coquitlam. So I just wanted to give that plug because it is budget night, and there might be a lot of people with a lot of money floating around that would just love to put a swing in, whom I know I will tie onto it and he can sit there forever. Thank you.
I don't know, that sounded violent. I want to apologize to Council. Councillor Reid said she just wanted like half a second in order to make 1 second comment on a second round of debate, but clearly we've opened a second round of debate. Councillor Wilson, for the first time.
Thank you. I just wanted to support what Mayor Stewart and Councillor Zerillo were talking about, because I too live in the southwestern section of Coquitlam, and we're not pitting one neighborhood against the other. But we are sticking up for our neighborhood. And the Poirier Community Center is used by not only all of Coquitlam, but part of Burnaby, part of Port Moody, part of Port Coquitlam. And but to use that as an example, compare that to money that we spend on a park in Burke Mountain, I think is you know, a little disingenuous. This is a community park, and, you know, so I'm just saying, I look at the map the same way as Benita looks at the map, and I also agree with Councillor Reid. You know, we have put playgrounds in schools, but we are going to have schools eventually in Burke Mountain as well that will have playgrounds. But we don't have sport courts in our area of Coquitlam, and we have parks that are in awful condition. And so all we're saying over here is don't forget about us. That's all.
Councillor O'Neill, who lives in the south part of northern Coquitlam.
A first wave settler to mid-Eagle Ridge. It's been a great discussion, actually. And you know what? And it's kind of a theme for the 2 years that Councillor Hodge and I have been on council, wrestling with parks priorities. And it's one of the reasons that everybody was so happy that we finally launched the Parks, Rec, and Culture Master Plan. And so I think, am I putting too much hope in what this is going to finally give us? Some sort of master look at where we need more parks, maybe Southwest Coquitlam, or is it even more general than that? Are we going to get some guidance from that, some expert guidance from that will allow us to make decisions and to provide Benita's little girl with a sport court, or Craig's growing family with a place to shoot some hoops or throw around some lacrosse balls?
Your Worship, yes. It won't be the tablets coming down from the mountain, but it would certainly be better than some of the previous work. There are a lot of council policy decisions. I'm hearing today about balance of our investments, renewal of assets to match the population as it's emerging, supporting those neighborhoods. Those are policy statements that we will bring forward for council consideration. Those policy statements and those broad areas will drive strategic decisions. A master plan will not give you strategic decisions. It will lay the landscape and policy work to drive strategic studies. It will definitely give you the top 2 or 3 layers that you need, this council needs, to move forward this community in the Parks and Rec area.
Give us an example of what thus is the prediction of the prophet Raoul.
Okay. So give us a prediction of what, if you can, of what the sort of statement in the Parks, Rec, and Culture Master Plan would be that would guide us in making decisions about better, more parks in this neglected area of Coquitlam. What would that statement look like? Is it a general policy statement that every section of Coquitlam should have a relatively equal number of parks, or is it something more specific than that, or less specific than that? What would that look like?
Well, as an example, our partnership with the school district, critical relationship. It's gone through some ups and downs. We are trying to reinforce that relationship. We're trying to bring that relationship back to a place where there's those common interests are fully understood. Both parties are coming at any asset, changes to ours or theirs, have to look at one another as potential partners. We're certainly going to have statements around our partnership in established areas and new areas to make sure that we don't have redundancies in the system, that we support each other's efforts to share those sites. So there's policy language of that nature. It's too easy to say that you're going to have balanced delivery of every single type of neighborhood park or community park. That's not how it works. But I think what you need is statements around what values this community have around parks and recreation and culture, and how those are going to be delivered, based on the trends that we are experiencing as a community in terms of population, in terms of what best practices there are around delivery of these. Historically they were little tot lots all over the place. The practice has been moving away from that because of the way that those services are delivered to the community. So there is a trend. So we will look at all those and provide broad statements that can be synthesized to working policy. And from there would be strategic decisions that can be made. All areas are going to be looked at. As an example, sports courts, they're very important, they're very valuable, but many that we have need to be repaired and maintained. And where is the field of sports courts going? You know, is that continuing to be a great trend? We believe it is in certain areas. In other areas, they should maybe be phased out because, you know, we've got an aging population in our transit areas. Those really should be more geared towards maybe an aging population. We need to look at each individual neighborhood in its in what it is. So there's many. It's hard to answer the question, but we'll certainly look at all those issues closely and provide a document that hits the sweet spot.
Thank you very much.
And what? Yes.
Can I point of order?
I don't know. Can you?
Yeah, the point of order is this. We've in Queenston Park, we've talked about Mallardville, we've talked about property Burquitlam, we've talked about everything else, but the issue that's before us, that's been taking now for about 3/4 of an hour, we still haven't got back to the issue that's before us. We're talking about everything else in the city. Let's talk about what's before us.
Okay, most of the last discussion from Mr. Alueva was about the field.
I just had to bring it to attention.
No,
violate this.
You called a point of order, which requires the mayor to make a ruling.
To talk about this approval here that's before us.
Does anyone have a point of order?
Simple.
Okay, I'll make a ruling.
Would you please?
The last discussion was almost entirely about what Mr. Alueva called the field of sports courts, which sounds like an oxymoron, actually, but about the whole area of sports courts in the Parks Master Plan. This is about a Parks Plan, and the Parks Plan has to fit into the Parks Master Plan, so it's pretty hard for me to rule out of order anyone that wants to talk about the grand scheme of the Parks Master Plan and how this fits. So I'm left with that. Unfortunately, we've gone a full 2 times around this, and I'm not sure we're any closer to making a decision on this. It sounds to me like we probably have enough votes to pass the thing, but and I don't know if there's a motion to do anything else other than that. I'm reluctant to do this, but Councillor Zarrillo, because I've recognized other speakers for the second time. Councillor Zarrillo, for the second and final time.
Thank you very much. So I just wanted to bring it back, but because I'm not sure how we got on so far off track, but really my initial objection to this plan is that when I was on the doorsteps, people said to me, where is the money going? And since I've been in office, I've been told Burke Mountain pays for itself, Burke Mountain pays for itself, Burke Mountain pays for itself. And here's a perfect example of where we were allocated $620,000 for a park in Burke Mountain, and we're asking for $1 million. And it totally comes back to this. This $300,000 from Gillies Trail, we will be asking for it again when Gillies Trail Park needs to be done. Where will we find that $300,000? It may come from our taxpayers. Authorization of allocation of $85,000 from general revenue. If we spend that, we need to fill it back up again. So I just wanted to point back, I am not pitting one area against another. My objection to this plan is that it's over the $620,000 that was allocated, and the residents told me they want to know where the money's going, and I've been told Burke Mountain pays for itself, so is our residents, and I'm not seeing it here in this plan.
Okay.
And thank you for the opportunity to speak twice.
Quite welcome. And on the last point, there are playgrounds, in fact, being built in schools in South Coquitlam, but they're being built in schools in Bramblewood and all kinds of schools in North Coquitlam as well. They're being, we're committed as a council to play, and we build playgrounds in every corner of our community, and one of them in Port Coquitlam, actually. We built a playground in Port Coquitlam at Coquitlam River Elementary, which technically is right across the street from Coquitlam. So this motion is on the floor, and there's no other speakers. All in favor? Yes. All opposed? Councillor Zarrillo is opposed. The motion carries.
Item 14 concerns a local area service. This is lane paving between Kerwan and Winslow Avenues. The recommendation from staff is that Council direct staff to formally petition the adjacent property owners regarding paving the lane between Kerwan and Winslow as a local area service project.
Moved by Councillor Reid, seconded by Councillor Nicholson. Mr. Clerk, I'm confused. There's a neighbourhood that wants their lane paved? sorry.
And wants to pay for it, yes.
What part of Coquitlam is this? Oops, Councillor Sikora.
Yeah, thank you. Are we now starting to pave lanes with the same program?
We voted on that.
Because this is I think you believe it's probably the first one that I've seen in the last. The lane is going to be paved.
Yeah, but it's a funny lane.
You know, it's. I guess it's a needed lane to be paved. Or the residents are willing to pay the 60% off it.
Mr. Stablin.
Yes, this is one of the first ones since council has changed the cost-sharing formula. The city pays 40%, the property owners pay 60%, the majority of the cost. These property owners have indicated that in accordance with council policy, they want their lane paved and they're willing to pay for a significant portion of that.
And that's a good idea. However, how about people that want to get their streets paved? They came on board with 60%.
Likewise.
We'd be able to do it without any problem?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anybody else? Seeing none. Local area service, all in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 15 is an application for a permanent change to a license for a liquor primary establishment. In this case, it's the Townhall Public House located at 925 Brunette Avenue. Council has the option, having given consideration to the report, to either not support the application or support the application in accordance with the city's new policy, and that the report of the city clerk be forwarded to the LCLB as comment.
Councillor Reid moves option B.
Just to confirm your work.
Which is to support the application?
Yeah, but just to confirm, that is our new policy.
One moment, please. One moment, please. Councillor Reid.
That is our new policy, the one that we just passed last week, I believe.
That is correct. What
option
B allows for less hours than the applicant requested, but they are conforming with the policy recently passed by council.
Right. Okay. So we have two applications side by side, businesses, and
correct.
Staff are recommending that we can either not support it or support them both the same, because that is our new policy. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you very much.
There you go. Councillor Sikora.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor. You know, I think what we're doing here with this policy is this policy at 9 p.m. patio closing to all pubs? Or is it just pertaining to this pub? And if it's pertaining to this pub, it's very, very unfair to have impose something on one pub and not the rest of them. I mean, just think about it. He just asked for extension of hours, which I believe is fine, but for him to, you know, Woody's, the traffic is louder than anybody in a patio.
I hate to do this to you, Lou, but you're out of order. We're not talking about Woody's. We're talking about this one. This one, the application is for
the town hall.
Town hall, and it's as stated in B. That's the application.
Okay, even
so our two choices.
Okay, even if even if it's a town hall, I feel the same way.
But our choices are
that's it.
Support the application as it sits as B, or deny them the application. It's not to apply to actually give them longer than they asked for.
Okay, if I can carry on, but if you denied it, that means that they can carry on with their other hours that they had in a patio and everything else. So they could be going till midnight on the patio. What we're doing here now is saying, no, we're going to re-regulate you. You'll be closing your patio down at 9 p.m. And you know what?
11 p.m. on weekends.
Right at that intersection, the traffic is making a lot more noise than any patio would. And then why would you treat somebody like that when there's no residential around there whatsoever? None. They're just at the back of them. That's probably a block away. And you know something? We need to get the basics. Okay? And I just mentioned to council members, I was in that business for many years, and I know what I'm talking about.
I know, but Councillor Sikora,
I'd hate to be one that be somehow desegregated from everybody else on the hours of operation. Or that somehow I should close my patio down at 9 p.m. while the other patios are open.
Councillor Sikora, that debate took place when we adopted the policy. The application before us, though, is as stated here. Are you speaking against it or in favor of it?
Well, I certainly will not support a 9 o'clock patio closure. No way. I can see.
So that's what the applicant has applied for.
No, the applicant, I don't think, applied for 9 p.m. patio closing. I don't think so.
Well, I understand right now that the applicant has reapplied based on the policy.
This application was one of the ones that was deferred prior to the establishment of the policy. What the applicant has applied for is an earlier opening and being able to be open later. What the policy says is that if you are seeking a change to your permanent liquor license, the policy kicks in at that point, of which the policy covers patio hours. It's a business decision of the owner. What they're essentially doing in this case is trading the ability to be open later in the evening for a reduction of their patio hours. That's a business decision the applicant can make. In this case, the hours will be extended on weekends, and the patio hours will be limited in some fashion. All existing hours are grandfathered unless the owner of the establishment applies to have some change to their permanent liquor license.
So if I can continue, so is the owner or the applicant in favor of 9 o'clock closing patio, or he doesn't even know about this?
I have not spoken to the applicant directly.
That's right, and I don't think for 1 minute that he'd want to agree with this. So, Mayor, I think we need to either table this for a week or two and we get clarification, but don't pass a law that's going to take any, I don't care which pub, or which restaurant, whatever, that somehow they're different than anybody else. And that's all I'm saying.
No, I understand, and you said that when we passed the policy. And I realize you have voted against it, but now we have that policy, and we can have this debate every time a public application comes before us, but we have a policy, and this applicant has used the policy, has adjusted his hours, and has applied for this, and we could vote against him or in favor of him.
And if I can continue, Mayor, the fact is that these patios are also smoking patios. Yeah, they're smoking patios. So what we're doing is saying to the people, after 9 o'clock, you butt out, or you got to leave the pub and go somewhere else where you can smoke. You know, I mean, it's not, I'll tell you, what we did, I think was unfair to begin with.
I know, you voted against it.
I think it's still unfair, Mayor, and I don't think we should be treating anybody like it. That's all. I'm sorry.
Okay, good. Councillor Hodge.
Now, what we're trying to do here is to level the playing field. And that's why I raised it back in February when we started to get these applications. And I thought at the time I said we were starting to set policy one application at a time, and that what we really needed to do was to come up with a general guideline that was fair to everybody. And so what we have now is an applicant that's coming forward that in order to, I guess, make one change, he's going to have to conform with the rest of the changes or to fall in line with the complete guidelines. So in order to stay open a bit later, he's going to have to tweak, or I guess he's going for the early morning one here because he wants to start at 9. So to put this whole thing in, basically a business can keep what they have, but if they want to make a change, they have to comply at both ends of the operating hours. Is that correct? I'm just sort of trying to figure out how this is being applied, because I noticed that originally the applicant had asked for a 1:30 on Mondays and to Thursdays, from its current till 11, but in recommendation B, we're recommending to 1. So my understanding is that we are, if we pass recommendation B, we are supporting the application, but we're supporting it amended to fit our current guidelines. Is that correct? It's not exactly what he asked for, but we're willing to go as far as supporting what complies with our guidelines.
That is correct, which is why the recommendation for the weekdays, excluding Friday, is 1 a.m., and then we've met the extension on Friday and Saturdays. And we've also recommended the supporting of the early opening hours, which is in conformance with Part 2 of the policy that says Council will evaluate the appropriate opening times for each liquor license primarily on a case-by-case basis. It has become the trend that many pubs serve brunches and breakfasts for sporting events or other things early on Saturday morning to provide that offering for the residents in their area.
Okay. Good. And patio, I know that when we were having the discussion about the guidelines, and early on in that discussion, we talked about a good neighbor policy, mostly in the area, I guess, noise and around the patios. And how does that fit in? This being now the first application that's come through under our guidelines, how, I know there was some discussion about, how, the ability to enforce that, and, Surrey, I know, has one. We've sort of written it in. Is that something that they sign on to when this, or how does the good neighbor policy fit into this?
If you look at Part 5 of the policy, it's a good neighbor protocol, and all applicants for new licenses or amendments will receive a copy of it, and it's intended as information for the applicants as a guide for expected conduct and operation. What we would be enforcing under is the city's noise bylaw provisions and other normal activities as they take place now. The protocol itself does not become an enforcement item, but it talks about the expectations of the community.
It's more of an expectations rather than a sort of a signed agreement.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I think what I would also add, and I look to Mr. McIntyre as well, in relation to Councillor Sikora's comment about the patio, if the applicant felt that if we supported this, which is in accordance with our policy, that they felt that they did not wish to make that exchange, they could decline to proceed with their license, and it would provide them an option at that time. There are ways that we can work around that. The policy was put there in order to provide council with a common metric in which to evaluate each of these applications, but the policy also recognizes the need for flexibility, that each part of the city is different, that pubs located in one area would have a different impact than pubs located in a different area of the city, and the policy is written in a way that provides council some of that guidelines and some of that flexibility so that they can make the appropriate decision for each establishment. I'm not sure if Mr. McIntyre has anything to add to that.
Your Worship,
you don't have to.
No, as Jay's set out there, that's been the whole challenge with this, is to provide, through a policy, provide some guidance, a statement of what the city's expectations are, but at the same time still preserving some flexibility for council. So on the patio hours, there was a concern that was brought up through our discussions with council, and at the end of the day, that's what the policy, that was the framework that was brought forward and endorsed by council. However, in the policy itself, it was recognized there may be situations and circumstances where a later opening for the patio may be merited. Maybe on a commercial strip, no residents around, and in that situation, it would be up to the applicant to demonstrate to the city how they could operate with a later patio closing hours and not disrupt people around them. So there is that option there.
There is the option to amend the policy based upon the 9 p.m. limit, just simply by changing the hour policy comes into effect.
Thank you. We do have 6 items after this, and we have about 40 minutes left. So just reminding council. On this one, I'm a little bit concerned because we have a discussion that we should have a level playing field that should apply to all, and then also a discussion that in this case the patio doesn't overlook residential, and therefore we should have a different one for this patio. But there are some, obviously, where the patio is right underneath residential or right across the street or right next to, adjacent to residential, and so I'm troubled by that. So I take this as the voluntary decision of the holder of this license that he's willing to give up some patio time on the weekdays in order to, primarily on the weekdays, in order to allow for extended hours both on the weekdays and the weekends. I also look at the word operate. The hours of operation of an outdoor patio are hours of operation as defined by liquor control and licensing branch, is not, which in other words, the hours of serving. It's not the hours of standing. I assume that if you wanted to smoke a cigarette on the patio, it's not, as long as you're not carrying your drink with you, you're not operating the patio, you're just simply using it as a place that individuals could smoke their cigarette before going back into the bar. Is that? I
would believe that to be true, yes.
I don't know that to be the case. So I don't want to fetter the operator here very much, but I think council did debate this policy at length. We came up with something we thought that if we applied it across the board as much as evenly as possible, we should be able to make the playing field as level as possible. And so I'm going to support B at this point. By Councillor Zarrillo, and then we'll have to have a vote on a second round.
Okay, so I had a question about primary food primary and liquor primary. Thank you, May, for introducing me to that the other week. But I'm just wondering, do we have different regulation in our policy? I mean, I don't see it here for food primary, liquor primary. Because I know the discussion we had a couple of weeks ago was, you know, that restaurants were trying to be bars, and with this early opening hour of 9 o'clock in the morning, because my concern is more with the 9 o'clock opening, that we have bars that now want to be restaurants, and we do know that there is some heavy marketing going on right now for one of those properties to get people there for breakfast. So I'm just wondering if we've made any distinction as a council, hours for primary, liquor primary, and food primary.
We did. Food primary licensed establishments that do not wish to serve liquor past midnight do not get referred to the city at all. And so what the policy says on the front page and others talks about the difference between what would be granted to a food primary who is seeking something other than the standard that the province provides licensing for. And in that case, we do have regulations that pertain to food primary, and that their closing hours are generally earlier than it would be for liquor primary.
So yeah, my concern is, do we need to have these bars opening or these pubs opening at 9 o'clock in the morning because it does cut away from the food primary. So anyway, that would be my concern. Looking at this is not the closing time, but the opening time.
And again, we passed the policy some time ago, a few weeks ago, and that policy is now being applied. If we want to revisit the policy, we could perhaps have a notice motion to have the policy be brought back, and we'll have another look at it. But right now, the matter that's before us, Town Hall. Councillor Sikora has asked for a second round of debate on this item.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a motion.
The fact is that, you know, what we're doing here.
We need a motion for a second round of debate. I didn't do it last time, and I deeply regret it.
Okay, I'll second it if it's short.
Oh, come. The motion moved and seconded for a second round of debate. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed?
Only one.
I've got two of us opposed. This is opposed to the second round of debate. Councillor Nicholson, myself. Come on, you guys. You complained last time I let him. Okay, you can have your second round, but keep it short, she said.
Yeah, okay, well, it will be very, very short. What we're doing here as politicians that are not businessmen, I'm the only businessman here.
I beg your
pardon.
Hold it.
Sorry, I've run a business for like all my adult life.
Selling houses, you know, and selling maybe commercial stuff that might be classed as a businessman.
I'm a business consultant.
Person, but I don't think. But you know something? I'm really, truly the only businessman here. I'm the only one in business that wrote a check for any employee. Did you write a check for an employee? No.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I got quite a check for
how many
paper
years
payroll.
ago? I still write checks for employees today. So you know, what we're doing, we have the highest taxes for commercial property in all of British Columbia, bar none. And now we're trying to curtail their hours of operation. We're telling the businessmen what we
Councillor Sikora, the motion is, do we grant this gentleman or this person the licensee his request for extended hours? He wants to extend his hours. Do we grant that? That's the request before us.
But also you've got the patio tied in there.
No, but that's the policy. Yeah, we voted on that a couple of weeks ago. If you want to notice it, if you want to put a motion on the floor, could we revisit the policy? That's different. But right now, the only thing we can vote on is, do we want this fellow to get his extended hours, or do we want him to deny the application?
Extend the hours and curtail his patio. So I'm sure that he'll be very unhappy. I know he will be.
Well, he's applied for it. He's paid money to get us to say yes.
You got that right, and you pay.
He paid money to get us to say yes, and I think you're about to vote no. So anyway.
You got that right.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, if there's uncertainty as to the owner's intent, we can defer these and secure a letter or something that would provide that assurance.
Did they submit an application based on this?
The applications were submitted prior to the. I
recognize that.
Prior to the policy, as applications that were in our queue, they received correspondence and direct contact in all of the deliberations that we took along the way, and we have not heard back from them since the policy was adopted. I'm not able to speak to specific conversations with the applicant, as I have not had any.
Okay, so the licensee name is, believe it or not, Versailles Steak and Lobster House. Remember Versailles? Anyway, the question. All in favor of the application by this person for an extended hour? All opposed to the application for extended hours? Councillor Sikora is opposed. Councillor Zerillo is opposed. The motion carries. Are there any motions related to the policy or no?
Item 16 is an application for a permanent change to a license for liquor primary establishment. This is Woody's on Brunette, which is located at 935 Brunette Avenue. As per the item before, council can choose not to support the application or support the application as generally put in accordance with our policy, and that the report of the city clerk be the council's comments to the LCLB.
Motion for 1B. Actually, I see. One moment, please. We didn't pass item 2 of the previous one. Is that required?
We did know they were moved collectively. Item 2 stands, whether it's A or B, is the choice. It stands as council's comment overall on the nature of the
motion was 1A or 1B last time, not
1B plus 2.
It was 1B plus 2. So is the motion this time 1B plus 2?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. The motion is 1B plus 2.
And I move that the first round of debate is concluded.
And I seconded it.
Councillor Sikora, do you agree?
Thank you very much. And frankly, I got 2 calls from Woody's Pub on this issue, and he's totally opposed to it.
He's opposed to his own application.
No, he's opposed to the 9 o'clock.
You want to move deferral till we can?
Yeah, I would like to move deferral so we can talk to all the pub owners and see what is it that might be accessible to everybody and all the restaurants.
Okay.
I mean, what's wrong with having a public meeting and talking to these people? So I move a deferral.
Well, sorry, move deferral to talk to the pub owner applicant here.
The applicant, yeah, no, but I think, you know what, we need not to talk to one. I think we need to talk to all of them and talk to people that have restaurants.
But we already did that. We had a public consultation process, including all of the...
we also had a public consultation on that path.
Councillor Sikora, you're out of order. You're talking about a path now. Okay. Mr. Clerk.
But you know what? We need some better policy than what we
Yes,
got.
we need a better policy about how to run an agenda.
So
Mr. Clerk.
I'll move a tabling motion.
As part of
it's
the
not
policy,
a tabling motion. It's a deferral.
Deferral, yeah, deferral.
Okay.
As part of the policy development process, we directly wrote to each of the liquor primary and food primary license holders in the city.
And we got their answer from a great many of them.
We did.
And in fact, including both of these applicants.
Yes.
And we considered those, I considered them, and we voted on a policy. And the motion now is to do that over again.
I took the motion to be that this item be deferred until next week's meeting in order that the applicant can be consulted on their own application, not on the policy in general.
That's better than the motion as moved. Yeah. Okay. The motion to defer till next week.
Till we can talk to these people. Yeah.
Till we can talk to these people. Okay.
Yeah.
The motion is to defer until... Well, I'm going to put it till next week because we can always re-defer, but by then we'll have talked to them.
Okay.
The motion is to defer till next week. It's seconded by Councillor Reid. All in favor?
Yes.
Sorry, are there any discussion about the motion to defer? No. Seeing none. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. I'm actually going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to bring back item 15. Do you have a motion to defer?
Yeah, a motion to defer on item 15.
I'll second it.
Okay, motion is to defer on item 15 as well. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
Now we can get through with the rest of it.
Councillor Sikora has indicated he won't be speaking any more this evening.
Item 17 is the 2014 business plan priorities. We have introductory comments by the Deputy City Manager. The recommendation from staff is that Council approve these priorities as identified in Attachment A of the report.
Thank you, Worship. This is our annual business plan priorities report for Council's consideration. We use the business plan priorities as a tool to focus our corporate efforts on the priorities most important to council. What I would like to say is that these priorities represent a point in time, so they're not cast in stone or chiseled into stone tablets or anything like that.
Mr. Dumont.
Should important item.
Mr. Dumont. This has been a grueling week. Last week was a grueling week. This has been a grueling week already. We've had a long day of council meetings, and I want to entertain a motion.
That's what I'm trying to do. This is far too important for us to rush through. It deserves a great deal more attention than we'll be able to give it this evening. I would prefer to have it come back to us next week, and I so move.
Is everyone comfortable with that? There's no objection from staff. I hear no objection from council. The motion is to defer till next week. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. They kind of go hand in hand. Mr. Clerk.
Item 18.
Read it first.
Sure, I can read it first. Item 18 is the 2013 Progress Report and 2014 Work Plan from the Staff Committee on Business Improvements and Customer Services. The recommendations that Council endorse this work program include as attachment B of the report and the customer service part entitled, of the report. Stop there.
Councillor O'Neill, do you have a motion? Councillor O'Neill moves deferral, and it's Councillor Nicholson seconds. Question is deferral until next week. Question is deferral until next week. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. I want to defer board and brief.
Item 19 is the Intermunicipal Business License Amendment Bylaw 4453. Staff recommendations that Council give first, second, and third readings to Intermunicipal Business License Amendment Bylaw 4453.
Moved by Councillor Hodge, seconded by Councillor Nicholson.
Speak
in favor. Opposed.
All right.
You know, I thought I had a speaker, but I must have been mistaken. Motion carries unanimously.
Effective chairing. Item 20 is the Metro Vancouver Board and Brief for November 25th. Our representatives are available to respond to questions, and the staff recommendations that Council receive the brief for information.
Moved by Councillor Nicholson, seconded by Councillor Sikora. Councillor O'Neill on the Board and Brief.
Yes, on the Zero Waste Challenge, Christmas 2013, on the Board and Brief, I see that staff of Metro's intending, and I've actually seen the commercials already, to continue spending money on a Create Memories Not Garbage campaign. In answer to my question on April 20th, Richmond Mayor Malcolm Brodie, who's chair of the Metro's Zero Waste Committee, told the conference I was at, it was a Council of Councils event, that that they spent almost $250,000 on this campaign to persuade people not to buy Christmas presents, but to, that have packaging or could increase waste. I think it's a horrible, I think is the horrible waste of taxpayers' money, $250,000 to buy TV commercials. So my question is, to any of our members who happen to be at this meeting when this happened, is anybody raising any concerns about this waste of taxpayers' money? Did anybody utter a peep? I don't hear a peep.
I'm going to.
That's in Richmond, isn't it?
I'm going to.
Oh,
that was Metro-wide. There was a campaign that we were all told was successful, in that it reached lots of people and got top of mind notice. So that's the only thing you can measure in that kind of campaign. But I'm going to look to Councillor Nicholson, who's on the committee. Okay. Councillor Nicholson, who is eager to answer that
Merry
question.
Christmas, Councillor Nicholson.
Yes. Yeah, you're going to get a present wrapped in styrofoam.
Well, many of you will recall what I had to say about our very own budget only a couple of hours ago, about the importance of trusting the process and the reliance that we put on well-qualified staff and the trust that I place in them, and challenge occasionally, but always find it there. With regard to Metro, I'd just say not so much. But to find the way into actually turning that ship even a little bit to one side of its present charted course is tremendously challenging. And I'm afraid that in the work that I attempt to do at the Zero Waste Committee, where I'm well supported by our staff in being prepped before I go down there, there are far larger items to be concerned about. And so my emphasis there is to try to get those to change. And it's going to be a long and arduous process. Tackling a $250,000 ad campaign would only make it less likely that I'd be appointed to the Zero Waste Committee.
Well, thank you for that very honest and straightforward answer. I do appreciate it. Just one last comment. One of the legacies of the councillor who used to sit here was he got us focused on outcomes and measuring outcomes and those sorts of things all the time. And, you know, how does Metro measure the outcome of this? Well, it was a top-of-mind idea, but it did really have any effect? No, they don't really have any way of measuring any tangible effects of this. It's a feel-good kind of a thing. And so maybe by me raising it now, you can keep your seat on that committee, and we can still go on a record, or at least I can, of saying that I think this is a real waste of money. Thank you.
Well, the KPIs might cost $250,000 to figure out.
And I hope that makes you feel good. I will.
What does that mean?
It was a feel-good campaign. Sorry. I will give one other side, because I'm on the utilities, and I last June managed to go on an expensive junket, Metro-funded junket, down to visit 4 sewage treatment plants just south of here, over 2 days on a bus. Stayed in an expensive Motel 6, and Bob's Motel 6, by the way, in Renton. And
pay your way to stay in Motel 6.
And the reason I went was because at the time, the direction that Metro Vancouver was going with the Lions Gate sewage treatment plant was more expensive than one might have expected for a sewage treatment plant like that. It's a sewage treatment plant that's in the order of $500 million. So not $500,000, but or $250,000, but $500 million. $700 million. $700 million. Well, back then it was $700 million because they've toned it down, or at least they've reallocated some elements of it. Because back then it had a number of things, like some of the models had green roof and some of them had community center sort of space in it, and one of them had a wedding chapel because of the number of people, I think, that would like to tie the knot in a sewage treatment plant. I mean, if you're flush, you could probably rent someplace else. But if you're not flush, you could rent at the sewage treatment. But it raised the question of, to what extent do we control costs at Metro Vancouver? We just had a long discussion about whether it's good money to spend on a poured rubber. At least there, the poured rubber was up in Northeast would be. There's a purpose for it. It's meant to be accessible and all those sorts of things. We had a number of elements in the plan associated with the Lionsgate sewage treatment plant that didn't seem to have a lot of merit, other than the fact that they would make the building the nicest industrial building, and in fact one of the nicest buildings full stop in North Vancouver. And I kept raising the question that in our works yard we don't have any nice buildings like that. We've got rectangles that are very functional, but they're meant to be industrial buildings in an industrial installation. So we do raise those questions. We beat our head against the wall, and we managed to get perhaps 200,000 or 200 million, which doesn't seem like much, but reduced off the build scenario, or at least reallocated, and an agreement that any extras on such facilities ought to be paid for by the local sewage area rather than by Metro as a whole, and so member municipalities wouldn't be stuck with that. Not sure if that we're going to actually stick to our guns as Metro on that point, but I agree that, and Councillor Nicholson made the point, that there are big fish in this that need frying here, and the little ones sometimes you have to give up.
And we did question it.
Councillor Segura on.
Thank you. There's no question that the Metro Vancouver needs a shake-up. We've got about 35 board of directors that can shake it up really good, but it's not happening. And I'll tell you something that I remember when I was on the board. Gordon Campbell was the chair of Metro Vancouver. I complained and complained and complained about GVD housing. Complained and complained about GVD housing. He felt that it was a government deal, and so a 17% vacancy rate was no problem. Complained about that, you know what, we had no money to repair fridges or stoves, replace windows. So Greg Halseybrand took over as the chairman. And he called me into the office. He says, "You're the new president of the Metro Vancouver Housing." Perry is with us now in land development, managing our land in the city of Coquitlam. I appointed him as our manager. Got rid of the general manager, got rid of the other manager, and he was our head guy. Talked to Perry. Within a year, we took the 17% vacancy rate down to 1 and down to 0. And we bought 3,500 new fridges and stoves, replaced them all and everything. And when I went, and you know, it was supposed to be a 1-year appointment, I stayed there for 5 years. And Jack Lout said to me, "Mayor Sikora, you should write a book about this. Nobody did what you did." And frankly, when I left Ottawa, we had $25 million in the bank besides, you know. So it takes somebody with some guts to do things. If you haven't got the ambition, or you think that, you know what, it's easy to go there and say yes, 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 and not dig into anything, it'll continue that way. And that's the problem with all our governments throughout the cities, throughout Metro, you name it. It's not only Metro. The cities are in the same state, you know, so, you know, frankly, out there. And then I took over GVD Parks for 5 years, cleaned that up. Then I took over the solid waste. Who put in the Cache Creek? I did. I organized that. I put that contract together in Cache Creek. They couldn't do it. Matter of fact, Bill Foreman said to me, "Sikora, you got to be a whiz, because I don't know how you did it." Him and Michael Connor went there about 5 or 6 times, and they couldn't do anything. And then they said, "Lou, we hear you're a pretty good negotiator. Would you go there?" I was on solid waste. So I went there. Within a week, I had the contract. I had it done. But you know, again, it took some hard-nosed bargaining and some hard-nosed decisions to be made. Frankly, I'll tell you something. That's why I don't want to sit on any committees in Metro. I will not take it. I don't want to serve on some lame duck. And the whole Metro is a lame duck as far as I'm concerned. It needs shaking up. What should they be in? Water, sewer, and garbage, period. You should get rid of everything else. But no, they keep building an empire, building an empire, and me too, and me too, and me too, I'm going to support you. You keep building those empires. That's what's happening. Very, very simple there, and I can't describe it.
Yep. You're not arguing
but
that
as you know yourself, that it needs shaking up.
You're not arguing against the Metro function of regional culture, are you?
Call it culture?
Okay.
Okay. A motion is to receive. All in favor, opposed, carried. Oddly enough, our next item.
Yeah, Metro Vancouver appointments.
Mr. Clerk, take us home. Take us home.
Thank you. The timing is perfect. Unusually for us, but perhaps not unusually for Metro, from what I've been told by others, we have an on-table item, and this pertains to council appointments to Metro. The recommendation from staff is that council approve the following appointments to the board of directors. Mayor Richard Stewart with 4 votes, Councillor Nicholson as his alternate, Councillor May Reid with 3 votes, with Councillor Hodge as her alternate, and that we will convey to Metro Coquitlam's interest in having representatives sit on the following committees: Aboriginal Relations, Councillor Zerillo; Environment and Parks, Councillor Hodge; Finance Committee, Councillor Reid; Housing Committee, Mayor Stewart; Intergovernmental Administration Committee, Mayor Stewart; the subcommittee of that for electoral areas, Councillor Reid; the subcommittee of Intergovernmental for Regional Culture, Councillor O'Neill; Regional Planning and Agriculture, Mayor Stewart; Transportation Committee, Councillor O'Neill; Utilities Committee, Mayor Stewart; and the Zero Waste Committee, Councillor Nicholson.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councillor Sikora, seconded by Councillor Nicholson. I'm tempted to oppose it. My name's down there too often. And the second half? No? Okay. Any discussion? Motion is all in favor. Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Your Worship, that's the final item on this agenda.
Before we do that, I do want to express our condolences. We expressed some condolences last week, and I want to express some condolences this week on behalf of Council to a couple of our senior citizens that were killed in a tragedy on Austin Avenue at Gatensbury last Wednesday night. A tragedy all around, and Council sends their best wishes and condolences out to the families, and there's not much else to say. It was a tragedy all around. The motion is to adjourn. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously, as is Council